Good evening, and thank you for joining us. Whether it's live or through our recorded sessions, we look forward to your feedback and your thoughts. I'm Khatuni Gunawardena, joining you on the invitation of Women Empower Global and Women Empower Sri Lanka to host a 3-episode series on the lead up to their summit on the 8th of March for the International Women's Day. It's under the theme of Shattering Your Glass Ceiling. You can find the information with regards to this on their socials. This year's theme for Women's Day is Choose to Challenge. This could be anything from inequality, bias, stereotypes, or lack of inclusion. The premise is that individually, we're responsible for our thoughts and actions every day. Sanella, the founder and CEO of Women Empowered, invited me to hold the first episode on challenging our thinking. Our struggles exist across multiple silos, and for today, I have put privilege on the table. But how do we intersect in our struggles, even amidst such powerful enabling structures? What happens in private and intimate spaces, such as our thinking, when policy can often stop at the door? When I think of the intimate, I think of the body, the mind, one's heart and soul. So how does our experiences shape our thinking? What about internal discrimination and bias we hold within our minds? The personal is political. Where and how does the personal intersect with the political, economical, social, environmental, and legal? My guests today are friends and colleagues I deeply respect, who have, by their actions, their lives, and their thinking, have impacted my thinking. I was watching an episode conducted by my esteemed friend Deepak Ramola, where he asked his guests, what is a lie you've been told that was convinced and that has convinced you to live like it's the truth? And the guest said it was falling prey to the idea that you live one identity. And on that note, I would love to introduce my guests by name, but I will not delve further because their multidimensional truths cannot be summed up. And you can find more about them through their bios displayed on the socials and hopefully through the conversation. So hi, everyone. So we have Tanuja here with us today. We have Sushmita, we have Grace, we have Shasini, we have Timo, and we have Natalie. How's everyone doing? Thumbs up, we're good. Amazing.
Great.
Great, Timo, thank you. So we're public bodies in one way or the other. Regardless of what our bios say. We've been on media campaigns. We do put our bodies in the public sphere. And for me, I've had a very, I would say, a bad relationship with my body because growing up, whether it's my skin tone, the structure of my body, has affected me. Like I've been thin shamed. My parents have been thin shamed because of me on things like, are you not feeding this child? Why does she look like this? And also when I was like about 12, it's the time when you like first start getting crushes. And I remember this particular comment, which was racist and sexist, that said, she looks like a starving Ethiopian. So these kind of nuances and like thoughts have always been in my body, and I've focused on my academics. My entire identity was based on performance and performance on an academic sense. And even things like gymming, they were not in my head. They were not things that a gender person did, especially a woman, if you're not an athlete or if you're not a man as well. And gyms were not a place where young girls went to. And I wasn't even allowed to swim. I mean, bless my parents. But the issue was that my school didn't have a pool, so we had to go to Royal. And those days we didn't have like, long covering swimwear, etc. And it was that, no, you're not going to boys' school and wearing swimwear. So to this day, I can't swim. It's something I need to fix. But it took me a long time to realize that the body and the mind and our souls, they're also interconnected, and our thinking is interconnected. And it was only after my diagnosis with lupus that I really started exploring these facets. And Tanuja, if you don't mind, as the fitness expert, I would love to start with you and your thoughts on your professional journey, your personal journey, and any take you have on our topic today.
Thank you, Kalpani. Well, yeah, I mean, we are people that put our bodies into the public sphere. But when I first arrived here in Sri Lanka 7 years ago, the whole approach to fitness, it wasn't really there for women. I mean, women were not really taking part in fitness. I felt like there was a real gap there. Guys were still going to the gym and things like that. But when I first arrived here and I started to go to different gyms, I noticed that there was hardly any women in those areas. And things have really changed in this country in the last few years. And I think it has a lot to do with the emergence of social media and influencers like myself who are starting to put themselves out there, show other women that it's okay to do that, it's safe to do that, and encouraging them to go into areas and, even physical areas like gym spaces that they never felt comfortable to go into before because, they felt like it wasn't an area that they were supposed to be in. And this is not just even in Sri Lanka. I found this even in England when I first started out in 2010. I used to work for a big gym chain over there called Gym Box, and a lot of the guys were like these big steroidy guys. And I remember me training my little girls, but I wanted to show them that, they could do a deadlift or they could do a squat, and it wasn't, something that only a guy was supposed to do. And I remember, taking them into the area of the gym where only the big boys used to work out and, getting shoved out of the way and having to shove back and, physically shove back, to make our presence felt. But things have changed in the last few years in a positive way, I feel. And I hope that things are going to keep going in that direction. For me personally, in the last few years, getting pregnant and having to get back into shape is something that I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to get back into shape because I do see myself as a role model, as somebody who is responsible for, holding that flame of health and fitness and, and living that life, walking that walk and talking that talk. So I don't believe in just talking about it. I believe in living it. And, after my pregnancy, I've really been working hard to get back into shape because I want to prove to women and to mothers out there that, having a baby is not the end of you. It's a rebirth. It's you give birth to this child and you also become this other amazing creature. Where you don't have to lose yourself completely. And I do feel like you do, mentally you lose yourself so much when this baby comes along. You're suddenly responsible for this other human being. And I think it's really important to also love yourself. Because if you're not taking care of yourself as a mother, I don't think you can really be a sort of present and truly loving mother. Because once that depression and those kind of things kick in, you can't possibly be able to give love to another human being when you're not loving yourself. And I think that that's something that I really just want to spend the next few years working on in my field, really focusing on women, on mothers, because this is my new role now. And I can only really speak of what I can relate to. And for me, this is something now that I really feel strongly in my heart and my soul. And I just want to prove to other mothers and show other women that motherhood is not the end of you, it's the beginning of you.
Thank you, Tanuja. You pointed out something very interesting about how you had to shove people away. It's about
Mm.
taking up physical space
Mm-hmm.
and making your presence felt. And I think a lot of us resonate with that, in one way or the other, how you, um, because, there's often this conversation on what happens in the digital space. Can we do all of this through conversation, or does it have to be direct action? And physical presence, in that sense, it's radical, right? And it is required.
For me, even my physical structure, I feel like I had to become in a certain way physically strong in order to kind of prove that I was able to be in that space and I was allowed to be in that space, because in the world that I'm in, men don't take you seriously when they see a little scrawny girl. So I knew in order for me to be taken seriously, I had to kind of become physically uh, you know, greater than the average human, the average girl. I had to push myself more. And when I tell you, I honestly physically had to push back with men and hold my, girl clients' hands and be like, let's go, we're doing this. Because they used to be so scared to go into those areas of the gym because the guys would, that testosterone, you could just feel it in the air. They were not wanting anybody else to be in. And, when guys are taking steroids and things like that, you can almost feel that energy. So I just wanted my girls to understand that there is no boys area and girls area. The girls were not just supposed to be in the area where the stretching happens, whatever. This is a space where everyone should be allowed to be in. Everyone should, have that right to be in.
Absolutely. And I think we all resonate, and I think we'll come up to the conversations as well, how in one way or the other, we had to, like you said, we had to belong or make ourselves feel like we belong to be there by taking on something, right? Whether it's a structure, for me, it was with my personality.
Mm-hmm.
I had to be very like, because people would look at me, and I think a lot of people would resonate as well, because like I'm small and when you say model, people don't take you seriously. So I have to put other things behind it and be like, actually, this is my background. Or speak for people sometimes, just take up space so
Mm-hmm.
that, I gain that respect and I feel like I belong there. And I think, that's something that we really need to tackle. Because with all our privilege, we're still fighting for that seat on the table. Like just to have a seat. We're not saying we deserve it. It's just let us in those spaces.
Let us also be side by side. We don't want to be the best. We just want to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to ask you in terms of like, when you have a child, because like a lot of my friends have children, and there is this conversation between self-care and self-love and guilt, because as women, we're constantly
Oh my
told to
God.
be
I mean, the
present.
thing with mom guilt, I mean, it's so real. Not only the guilt that you put on yourself when you are doing something for yourself, but the guilt that other people put on you if you are doing something for yourself. Like if you are going to, I don't know, like, maybe just get your hair done. I know that sounds so silly and superficial, but just doing that small act for yourself. I remember in the first few weeks after I had my daughter, my mom just came over. She was like, just go and get your hair done. I must have looked like hell at the time. She was like, just go, just take an hour. But it was like so rejuvenating. And like, I felt like a human being again coming back into my home. But people will make I remember walking to the hall and like, oh, you're here. Oh, baby small, no, like, you know what I mean? Like as if like my child was there, crying and like you're hungry or something like that. And I was like, yeah, my mom's with her, I pumped before I came out, it's fine. And I had that so many times, like so I went to a friend's birthday and they're like, you're out. Yeah, and I was like, yeah, I haven't left my child screaming and hungry. She's fine. She's sleeping. I've pumped and left milk, but it's all good. So this mom guilt thing is so serious. And especially in this country, they really make you feel bad about it. But I don't know. I just feel like those little things that you do for yourself are necessary to your mental health, and just being a better mom. Because if you don't do those things for yourself, you're just on a downward spiral, especially with the hormones and all the other things that are going on, lack of sleep, no time for yourself. It just accumulates.
Absolutely. And I know we all live within a capitalist structure and commercial spaces as well, and self-care is now commercialized as packaged and sold to us. But there's an interesting paper even from Sharana, if anybody is interested, Sharana Sekara, who penned that, originally self-care was a radical act even for feminism, to say that we are claiming that space, we deserve that time out, we deserve to love ourselves, and that it's necessary, and that doing that is challenging the system, is challenging patriarchy, is challenging whatever notions that are put out there. So you
Absolutely,
going
because
ahead and
there are so many people that are just putting this on you that you're a mom and you just have to be at home and just look after your baby and that's it. That's the be all and end all of your existence now, and it's not. It shouldn't be. Why can't you be a working mom? Why can't you be bringing home the bacon and looking after the child? You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason why you can't do both. My parents did. My mom did it. That's how she taught me. She taught me to never, be reliant on a man, always be able to stand on your own 2 feet. And even in motherhood, like, I refuse to give up my career and I refuse to give up what I love, because that's not just my job, that's my life, that's my passion, and for me, I couldn't give up something that I cared about so much. And I feel like it's something that gives me, so, as well as me helping other people, it helps me so much. It wasn't something that I could give up.
and this is, you absolutely hit like the nail on the head. This is why I want to explore today's conversation within the structure of privilege, because a lot of women don't have, say, a mom to help them out, or house help, or be able to go to a job even, because sometimes the husband expects you to stay at home, or society
Mhm.
expects you to stay at home. And how even with all the privilege, you're still struggling, and how that translates. That's an area that I always think about, and that's when I say that all stories are important. Maybe it's not as important as another crisis, but if liberation for us has to be for everyone, each and every one of us, and empower women. I thoroughly believe empower other women, and you're a living embodiment of that, because your
Thank
strength empowers everybody else. So thank you so much.
you.
And I'm just going to open the floor or the table or the Zoom circle for Sushmita right now. Just to switch over. Sush, how are you feeling?
I'm good, Kalps. Thank you. How are
I
you?
look lovely. Thank
Thank you.
you. So tell me about you and the body. I mean, you're a model with Agency Sri Lanka. We worked together for a couple of years now, even though we haven't shot together, which is something we need to sort out ASAP.
Yeah.
But how's your experience? How is body and you?
Well, in the fashion industry, my type of body is kind of celebrated. So I have felt like a sense of belonging whereas I didn't feel that before. And I always felt very insecure and gangly and awkward. I did a talk show on this about body shaming and the stuff I have gone through because I'm so skinny. And sometimes I just wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, I wish I didn't look so scrawny all the time. Because sometimes, I just want to be able to fit into clothing without having to take it in all the time and get it tailored so that it fits me. But the biggest assumption is that I don't eat. I do. I eat a lot. It's just that I have a very high metabolism. So I guess I just don't gain weight. And so for me, working out has really helped me kind of look more toned. I haven't done that in a while because of COVID, and I'm a bit worried to go to the gym. Home workouts, I'm a little too lazy to work out from home. So, yeah, other than that, I would say I do have a lot of insecurities. And I actually posted something on my Instagram story today, which is so true. It says, uh, thanks, bro. Your joke was funny, but now I'm insecure. Which is so true. Like, so many people make fun of my size, about how thin and long I am, and they don't realize that words do hurt, and you keep thinking about yourself, like wondering, oh, am I actually like this? And so yeah. but other than that, I have to say, like, modeling has really given me a lot of self-confidence, and I'm very thankful to the agency for letting me, giving me a chance and having faith in me.
Absolutely. I completely resonate because we overlap, I think, in that form of experience. And like you said, like, if you look at things from a Western lens, we have privileged bodies. But in Sri Lanka, like, we've been shamed. We've had personal conversations before, whether it's in our romantic relationships or people is constantly like, you're starving, or it's this hashtag model life. Do you live off a salad?
Or
Eat
men
some.
don't like bones. Men aren't dogs, they don't like bones.
There you go. So this started from like a song, and it was so hurtful because it was like this change over to body positivity, but then it was also tearing down other women, and thin shaming also needs to be at one point or the other spoken about. But the thing is that media is imbalanced in a certain way, because not in Sri Lanka, again from a Western gaze, because in Sri Lanka, again, medium body types are celebrated. Thinner, slimmer body types are considered not attractive, as is the other spectrum. So the medium build is what is attractive, right? But from a larger scale of media, because that does impact us, thin bodies are celebrated. Models are supposed to be the epitome of it. But you and I know in our personal life and in our journeys that we've not felt like that. And like you said, like even for me, like I would never ever say that modeling is a place for someone who's struggling with self-esteem, because it can crush you, right? Like I've gone into deep depression from being rejected, and like hearing things people have said about me and how they've dissected me. But at the same time, for me, like you said, it's empowering because it's such a radical act to love a body that I felt so disconnected to, because I was actually only diagnosed like 2 months ago after a talk show that I had on body dysmorphia, because I always felt like I had it. Because even to this day, like when I see pictures of me, I have to see the raw of it to believe that that's actually me, because I don't look the same way in the mirror. In my head, I don't look like that. And I was talking to my therapist, and he was like, it sounds like you've had severe body dysmorphia in your teens. And it took me till now, in my 30s, to realize that and to even acknowledge it. And that's how bad it was. And it is an absolutely a radical act for me just to be out there every day, like whenever I'm in a shoot, I'm euphoric because I'm celebrating just doing that. And when we say we love our job because of that, right? And it's that personal joy and purpose that we find out of it. And also, like you said, like we are human beings at the end of the day, regardless of privilege. Again, like privilege allows us certain things and certain access which cannot be denied. But at the same time, I think a lot of people forget that human beings are behind these images, and that people break. And I completely hear you. And anything you want to add to what Tanu just said, or any further thoughts?
No, I wholeheartedly agree with everything Tanu just said. That was like amazing, because couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, I'm not a mother, so no, it's just I do want to talk about the fact that because I have been body shamed and all of that, like people like think it's okay on campaigns and stuff to comment and comment in an insulting way, because they don't realize that behind those pictures is an actual human being. So they actually do say some nasty things. And I mean, I know Timo has experienced this. It's not fun. So you do begin to really like wonder, like you begin to internalize those comments, because you wonder, like, am I actually like that? Like, so apart from that, no, I guess not. I think a lot of people do have body dysmorphia to a certain degree because everyone's insecure about something, but it's just it doesn't do anyone any favors to make somebody else insecure about something else about them. So
Absolutely. And like what you said about, there being a human being and all of that. And since we're talking about challenging our thinking, these things bring you down, right? Because this is a stereotype that's been enforced against you. It is sexism. It is lack of inclusion in a certain sense as well, because yes, you're being included as a model, but then you're being excluded by society and by the male gaze, saying that you're not attractive, or even by females who say you're not, a human being, you're not normal. I mean, normal doesn't have to be the average, right? Normal is all of us in any shape, form, size, and I hope that's what we're working towards, right? And to call you abnormal or be undeserving of a space, have you found a workaround for it? For me, like what I did was, I think I shared with you yesterday, that I just completely just did not look at the comments, because I saw the first couple of ones coming in. One I didn't even understand said that happy to Ben se kakwage. When at the gun. I still don't understand it. Like I keep processing. I'm like, what do you mean, like a Ben step of trash? Like,
We're not even asking anyone to find us attractive. Just don't put anyone else down. Like, we may not be your type, you may not be our type, but we're not putting you down. Don't go out of your way to be nasty to people. It's just what it is,
Mm-hmm. And also, I think like we can create space as well, because there is a relevant conversation about what our bodies tell other people, what seeing us tell other people. Like for me, let's say, okay, seeing somebody of medium tone is great, because we haven't seen medium tones that often in our media up until like, half a decade ago. And at the same time, however, I still fit into that, very much of a stereotype of being thin, relatively tall. I have decent skin. I have, I'm a hair model. So I have all of these things going for me. And what that says when we are on media, and I think like you and I, like we try to open doors and we try to make, to ensure that, we have inclusion. And like you said, the agency has been great. I mean, I didn't even embrace my curly hair before Anjali was just like, Kaus, we have to get your natural hair out there, stop straightening it. This is not going to work. And the agency does have a diverse representation of models. Any thoughts on that, or anything that you found to work for you in terms of like being the confident person you are? Obviously, we are brave, and that's the truth. But how do you do you?
Sorry, I missed the last thing you said.
How do you do you? How is Sushmita this amazing being with everything that goes on?
Thanks. Well, a large part of it is taking it till you make it. It really is that. Like some days I don't feel good about myself, but sometimes you just have to, I don't know, do something that makes you feel good, like wear something nice or go to the gym, or like if there's a photo shoot, sometimes I feel really ugly before, like sometimes I have pimples on my face, like I don't have great skin like now. Sometimes you just have to tell yourself that you are all that, and do something to make yourself feel good, and then eventually you kind of believe it. Yeah, so that's the only advice I can think of.
Manifestations, and like you said, fake it till you make it. Works. It does work. Let's see what others also have to say on what we've been discussing. And thank you so much. I'll bring you back. I'm sorry we have to do it like this, but technology and Zoom, and we can't all talk at the same time. But thank you, Sush. Grace, could I again open the floor to you?
Hi, girls.
Hi. You deal with the topic of body in multiple mediums, I think, from what I know about you, whether it's your writing, your poetry, your just by being you and celebrating you, I think you challenge a lot of it. So tell me more.
Thanks, Kalpani. I think anybody who is of any body size, if they are putting their selves out there, is challenging the status quo. I know being a plus size woman, being a fat girl, everyone's like, oh my God, you're so brave for doing this, but like we're all brave because we're all insecure. Because you're nobody's everyone's cup of tea, right? Because you spoke about being attractive, right, to guys or like whatever, like, and I've said this like in our personal conversations. I've said like sometimes when people like flirt with you, they're just like, I really don't like skinny girls, as if that's supposed to make me feel better. Like, oh, thank God you don't like skinny girls, because like, I'm dying to date you, stranger. Like, see, we historically, women have constantly been pitted against each other, right? Because at a certain point in history, a woman's greatest accomplishment was how well she marries. Because, women couldn't own property, women couldn't buy land, women couldn't hold a job, right? But like hundreds years later, we're still in the same place, even though we have those rights now, right? And like, see, what I genuinely believe is that we can't fix everyone in society, right? We can have talk shows every day. We can introduce all of these into the curriculum of schools, right? But none of those things will matter if we don't fix ourselves, right? Because how often do we look at a stereotypical good-looking girl and a not so good-looking guy together and think, oh wow, he must be rich? I know I've thought of it, right? And the trick is to correct yourself first, right? Or like you see like a fat girl with like a stereotypically hot dude, and you're just like, oh wow, how did that happen? Okay, like, she must be like really good in bed or something. Like we have these perceptions, right? But when people say those things out loud, we get offended. I'm not saying it's not hurtful, but I'm saying we all think these things because we are all taught these things in some way or the other, right? In a movie, it's that like the fat girl is like always the sidekick, the ugly fat friend. There was a movie about it also, right? And always being being the biggest, girl out of my friend group, right? And I always was the person who never like fitted in, I didn't look like any of my friends, blah, 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 blah. And when I was really, really small, it used to bother me. Like, it used to bother me not because I thought I was ugly, but I just wondered what it was like to just kind of blend in. Because sometimes constantly standing out is exhausting. It's an exhausting thing, right? And sometimes you just want to fit in, especially when you're like 13, 14, like you just want to fit in because you just, you don't want to cause too much like of a ripple, right? But I think my perception of myself changed about my hair, about my size, even my personality. Like, it all changed because of me realizing that it's a blessing to look different, right? And you mentioned about it being a rebellious act of being body confident, and that is so true. I constantly see this post and I always share it every time I see it. It goes something like, in a world that benefits from your self-doubt, loving yourself is a rebellious act, right? And I really, really want to say, like, being a feminist is not like man-hating, and being body confident isn't about, promoting obesity or like anorexia or like all these dumb things people think happens, right? First and foremost, like, people really need to be educated on that, right? It's about letting people live their lives, right? Because things like food, things like hormones, things like genetics affect all of us in a different way, right? And that is one thing. And the other thing is, a woman's sole purpose on earth isn't to be, bangable. Like, it's not, right? And like, my biggest achievement isn't based on how desirable like some random man on the internet finds me. It's really not even for my future husband, right? If he doesn't find me attractive, he can leave, because there will be so many other people. My biggest like goal in life is to be a complete human being who's worthy of love and respect, first and foremost from myself, and then from my loved ones, right? And I feel like it's really important how we speak to ourselves. Because I have had so many girls coming and ask me, Grace, how are you so confident? Like, you don't give a shit about anything. Like, you're so free. It's not like I woke up overnight and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be confident. I'm hot as shit, right? I'm not walking into a room full of like beautiful girls and thinking, oh my God, I am hotter than all of y'all, right? I'm going to steal all your boyfriends because I'm that much attractive. No, that's not what being confident is about. And I feel like that is so, like, that idea of confidence is so irreplaced. Confidence, to me at least, is walking into a room full of beautiful people and knowing that it doesn't matter that you're not the hottest person in the room, right? Like, you are more than what somebody else finds you as attractive. It's great to dress up. I like dressing up. You feel good, like you like compliments, it makes you feel great. But you are so much more than a vessel that carries you. Albeit the vessel, you need to take care of it, right? You do your hair, you work out, you eat well, you sleep. But you're so much more, your confidence is so much more than what your productivity is, or like what you sell, or like what you look like, right? First and foremost, it's how you speak to yourself. I've had like a very, very insecure friend of mine asking me like, how can I improve, right? I told her to name 5 things she likes about herself physically. She couldn't come up with 5. And I don't know how many of us can, to be honest, right? And that's the problem. That's where our problem lies. Because I feel like a lot of people are somewhat comfortable in their personalities, right? Like, for some people, okay, one of the things I like the best about myself is that I read a lot of Shakespeare, and I think like that's cool to me in my geeky sense, right? And I have had friends who appreciate that. But if I had to name 5 things I like about my face or my body, it's a little bit harder. But why is it so hard for us? Is it because when we are confident, we get hated for it? Or is it because we actually don't like ourselves? And I think that's where the biggest problem lies, in how we view ourselves. Because when you view yourself in a negative light, you automatically allow other people to do the same, right? If you love yourself and you view yourself in a positive light, right? I'm not saying that you're thinking you're perfect, but you're thinking, okay, I'm a human being. I have good days. Some days I have pimples on my face. The other days I look damn gorgeous, right? And that you love yourself on both days, because you're a work in progress and a masterpiece at the same time, right? So when you think about yourself in that light, people can tell you to kill yourself. People can tell you that you're a dumbass, blank, 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 right? And like that you're ugly, or that you don't deserve a certain gig. But it won't affect you, because you just realize that their opinions is coming from somebody who can't name 5 things they like about themselves. And when you have gotten to that level, On most days, I'm at that level. And then you find peace.
Thank you, Percy. Like my wheels are like turning with like everything you're saying, because for me also, even with modeling, it's a lot about external validation, whether the client approves you, whether the people who are watching likes you, whether the makeup artist is happy, whether the photographer thinks your pictures are good, whether you like the pictures based on their interpretation of what they've chosen out of the shots as well. And also, when you spoke about like shrinking, especially when you're a teenager, I've still not come out of it, in the sense of, I call it my Clark Kent sort of personality, because people know a Kalpani that's supposed to be a model. But if I tie up my hair, get rid of my fringe, and just float around, I'm actually, incognito most of the time, because people don't recognize me, and I'm just like, cool, this is good, this is off duty. Because I still don't know how to be with my natural self, because I am able to perform as a personality, but I can't be on my own to a large extent still. And also, even if it's my intelligence, I found myself shrinking in relationships, because, let's say I'm these 7 things, I suddenly become 2 or 3 or quieter, and start doubting myself. And it's definitely a work in progress. And thank you so much for your input and everything you said. And also about what you said about worth and productivity, because women used to be treated like chattel, right? Like we were objects, and we are still objects, as much as, like you said, policy is there, we have rights that are on paper, but what is actually happening internally, what is happening when we step out into society? Do these policies actually work? Does having equal rights really mean you have equal rights? And you're in the field of law, I have a background in law, we have Sushmita, who's a lawyer, we have Natali, and we know that the law in itself has so many loopholes, and that it still doesn't mean, I mean, take Sri Lanka, we have a constitution that grants us equal rights and, no discrimination, but then we have, the former codes that still exist and which superseded, right? And so yeah, you're very right, and thank you so much for that. And maybe I can move on to Shastini, if that's okay. Thank you, Grace.
Hi, Kapani. Hi.
Hi, Shastini. Speaking about the body, how are you feeling? Something today, right?
Yeah, a little rough, but okay.
Well, Shastini got the vaccine, so congratulations.
Thank
And you're a frontline worker, so you do need the vaccine and to take care of all of us. So speaking of that as well, I mean, we're speaking about bodies, right, and inclusion. Because you are a nurse, I also want to ask, I think we personally had this chat about, because I have lupus, I can't stand in the sun, I can't do the whole queuing up, and it's been giving me a lot of anxiety, because I don't know how to get the vaccine, because I can't stand 2.5 hours outside, and they can get a vaccine, which is going to, probably give me a fever, also experiencing a flare up or something that's going to take me down for another month or so, because I stood in the sun for that long, right? And what is your take on bodies on a professional sense, from a medical sense, to start with?
I think what I have really truly learned from being a nurse and like being in hospitals and being in cases where, there's extreme care. So I worked in a cardiac unit. So, anybody who's there, it's bad, and it just really, truly, truly amazes me how much the human body can take. Like there are things that we have to do in the hospital that you wouldn't even imagine that a body can withstand, but we do. There are even 90-year-old ladies who come out of it, and every single day I'm working, I'm just so amazed at what our bodies do for us. And then it comes back to me thinking like, they do so much, they can bounce back from excruciating things, and yet we can sit down here and pull it apart and be so fragile about something that is so strong. For someone who isn't in a medical field, I think you would be unbelievably shocked at how you could be at death's bed, like pretty much gone, and how your body would fight and bring you back, you know. So that's something in my professional life that has really just stuck out to me when it comes to thinking about the body. It's not just like, you know, beauty, it's just something so much stronger. I think just so much more than what we think on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. Thank you. And even, yeah, as I said, even with lupus, I'm starting to realize how interconnected all of these things are. Because what I do think actually plays out and manifests in my body. Because when I'm stressed, I have the flare ups. When I'm happy, I don't have it. And it's so very true. And you have an incredible journey. It's also in your bio about, you know, finding your passion later on in life, and it is connected to your body. But before we start, I also want to ask, you are a professional model under contract with the same agency that I am in, but you know, you didn't identify as such in your bio. So maybe we can start from there and then go on to your journey, if it's okay.
No problem. I guess it's just not what I think of myself primarily. And I think that also has to do a lot with my journey, because I was always told that I was pretty and like fair and should be a model. And even though I wanted to be one, I was just so against just falling into that stereotype because I was pretty and fair. I wanted to be a model. And it's just something that I don't put first because I fought so hard to get where I am. It's not necessarily just not necessarily a negative thing. It's just that first and foremost, I'm a nurse, and then I'm a model. You know, I think it's that fight for me to get to where I did, where I am, that made me say nurse and keep out the model part of in my bio, because it's just something that I do, you know, fun, because being a nurse and like working in hospitals, being around death can be very, very exhausting. You think about it way more, I think, than an average person. So you need something that's an outlet that's fun, and, you know, you can be very lighthearted when you're working. You know, it's a good environment to be in, whereas a hospital can be a tough environment. So it's more like my hobby, my break, my thing that I love to do that can just help me shut off.
So interesting to me that, again, like we're both in the same agency, in the same board, and yet we have such different reasons for modeling. Because now if you see any of my bios, I put model in the front because I want to get that out of the way before somebody uses that to judge me or say anything about it. And I also want to say, look, I can be smart and beautiful. I want to take up all of these spaces. And how for you, it's, you know, it is creativity for me as well. It's a relaxing environment for you. But for me, it was an environment that I fought like tooth and nail to stay. And I only got in there also because thanks to Timo, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, it's specifically these varied narratives that interest me, because anybody who looks at us in most mainstream narratives would put us all in the same bucket: model, 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 done. But it is these nuances and these changes, because we can still arrive at the same place, but we follow different journeys, and maybe different things come out of it for us, and that these are all valid experiences and all things to like celebrate. So thank you for that. So how is your body and your journey connected?
Well, I think for me, my body and the way I look started off as something that was a little detrimental maybe to me. in the sense that the school that I went to, if you were a pretty fair girl, it was like, oh, oh, you're so fair, you're so pretty, you can get married and then you'll be fine, and that's kind of how it worked out, kind of what happened to me, because I was never very, when I started school, excuse me, I think the nerves are just like, so when I started school, my Sinhalese wasn't very good, and teachers would always pull me up to the front of the class to like work with them. I'd always get pulled up to like read in class. I'd always be laughed at. And I was just given the impression that I wasn't a very smart girl. And, thank God you're fair and you're pretty, because, you can get married and your life will be okay. I hated that. I just, I think it made me rebel more in school because of the way I looked. I was constantly being pulled up by teachers, and I rebelled even more because it's, you're a kid, you don't understand what's happening. You don't, and when you're in that situation and when people are telling you these things, you believe it. I really did not think that I was ever able to get to where I am today. I was like, well, I'll just do all these extracurricular things and, try to figure my life out and it'll be okay. But then I think it really, really came down to when it was my O-levels. One of my teachers were like, oh, it'll be so embarrassing if you fail. Why don't you just like study a little bit and try to pass? And I was like, you know what? That's not gonna happen. Like I'm gonna prove you wrong. So I locked myself up and I studied and I studied and I studied and I studied. And when my results came out, absolutely nobody like believed it. They were shocked. My Sinhala teacher, I had to show her the piece of paper to show that I had an A, and everybody was like, oh my God, Chasni, we didn't really know, and then after that I did my A-levels and
Sorry to interject, Shasini, you got 8 A's, right? All A's.
Yeah, my A-levels as well. And I think, I pushed so hard to get that. And when I got the results, I was still not really seeing my full potential, because ever since I was a kid, I have been obsessed with the human body and medicine and learning about medicine. And I would remember like thinking about, when I slept at night, how our body works and stuff. And I think because of the way I was viewed in school and the way I viewed myself in return, I just really never had the confidence to, even say out loud that I wanted to go into medicine and maybe become a doctor, because I was afraid that people would laugh at me, like, because I was always laughed at for everything, like my ability to not speak Sinhalese properly in school, for my ability to not make a paripu, because the home science teacher was just like, oh my God, how are you going to like make your husband happy if you can't cook, like, and those were the things that really kind of stopped me from having the courage to say, yes, this is what I want to do with my life. So I took a gap year. I was thinking about what I could do. And then I applied to uni and to study biology. The first 2 years were a disaster. I was so unhappy because I realized that this is truly not where I want to be. I put a lot of pressure on myself because, my mom gave absolutely everything to help me succeed. So I felt that, at that time, she was doing it all by herself. And I felt like I was really failing her, like truly. And that all these things that everybody said about me was true. And I kind of just broke apart alone in America. And it was really my support system over there that helped me get through a lot of it, as well as Shaman, my husband right now, because they kept saying, no, you can do it. You have to just put yourself out there. Because of my experience in school, I did not have a good relationship with like authority figures or like teachers or anything, because I was just bullied the whole time, and bullied in a terrible way. When you're a teenager and all these teachers are saying that you're this boy crazy, like harlot that's only obsessed with doing all these extracurriculars to meet boys. I didn't even have a boyfriend when I was in school. I'd never kissed a boy when I was in school. I didn't know boys. Boys didn't even talk to me when I was in school. And being labeled like that gave teachers were just no, a no. And then after a while, I realized that the people that I was around at that point wanted to help me, like my professors. I spoke to them. I kind of got onto a path that I was a little happier with my classes and stuff. And I actually ended up pushing myself further in what I was doing because I didn't want to waste the degree that I was doing right now. I always thought of it as a waste, but then if you're learning something, you're not wasting it. I pushed myself harder. I did research for an undergraduate research symposium, which I ended up winning a prize for. And if you told me that when I was, thank you, in school, I would have never, ever, ever believed that I was able to do that, So after I graduated with biology, I tried to get myself a job in a hospital, to figure out what I could do. And that's where I found nursing. And, I was just hell-bent on succeeding. That's all I wanted to do. There was this special one-year accelerated program that you could get into. It was very competitive. And even though I did have all these bio classes, there was still a few like psychology and stuff like, requirements that I had to take. And while I was waiting to hear from getting back into the program, they sent me a letter and said I was rejected. And that was just not going to be an option for me. I went up to the dean, which I would have never done this previously, but I went up to the dean and I said, would you consider me if I get all A's in these classes that I'm taking as prerequisites? And it was the most challenging thing I've done. He said, okay, sure, if you could do it. And again, like my O-levels all over again, I locked myself up. I worked really hard. And then I got the results that I said I would get. And then I was accepted into a program. And I think it changed my life. I graduated with honors. I'm a part of the Nursing Honors Society internationally. And I think that I wish I could tell young Shasini that she did this. And she's really not an idiot just because she's a fair, pretty girl, that she really could put everything she has and be somebody so much more than this face and this skin.
Shasini. So beautiful. And it's interesting because again, these are not stories that we speak of often because being fair, being thin, you are a classic beauty, a beauty ideal in Sri Lanka, and and how the negative consequences of this. And I think we have other members in this panel who are, classically, beautiful or always considered beautiful, who felt, the opposite effectiveness and how it can actually hold us back because that's the thing. Beauty ideals are damaging across the board. It's not just damaging to one sector. Yes, it might be more highlighted because like what Grace said, people make money out of making you doubt yourself. And there's a little part of it. It's not the same thing as colorism where, in the West, they would tell you you're too pale, you're not tanned enough, you don't have Asian features, for example. Asians aren't accepted, but fox eye is accepted. So those nuances are there. And so thank you so much for bringing it up. And this toxic culture that exists in schools, and especially because these teachers are female, right? And it's a topic that I want to explore one of these days because it's so bad. It's women picking on young girls and breaking us apart, right? And like even like the simplest things like change your life, like forever I've had a fringe. Like, from the time I was a child, I had a fringe. And I became a prefect in grade 5. And the senior teacher was just like, all I'm putting on. And then lo and behold, so like I started like splitting it up and like putting my plaits. And then lo and behold, I started wearing specs the next year. So it was like, we told you it was because of your fringe. And then like literally my class teacher, first thing she said was like, "Ane mage aachi wage." And that's it. And I all like that thing stuck in my head. And it's so funny for me now when people tell me that you look younger than your age. They don't actually believe I'm in my 30s. And I, I spent the longest time feeling like I look so much more older than my age. When I was a teenager, I felt like a grandmother because I would float around in these like gigantic clothes. I was always cold, so I would like carry around a blanket and I'll be like sitting around with my specs, my gigantic specs. And my mom was like, I had the stereotypical chains and the plastic frames and all of that. And I really did take on that persona of this grandmother, and I didn't even stand up straight. Like I would hunch, and I still had it. Like I find that whenever I'm studying, I would put like a blanket around me, and I'm just like just that because it's just such a thing that's like in my head. But I want to ask you, so what made you go to the dean, even with like this kind of such ingrained thinking? What made you go?
I was just not going to fail. I was not going to fail in what I set out to do. That was just not an option for me. My mom worked really, really hard to send me there, and it had to be worth it. And I wasn't coming back a failure. And I wasn't coming back and just doing something that everybody else did. Or I know that makes me seem a little like, I don't know, like I want to be better than everybody else, but that's just not the case. It's just that I felt like I had so much to prove. Sorry. And that's why I was just not going to take no for an answer. I was not going to not succeed, because working in this field is something that I definitely wanted my whole life. And I was just too scared, and I was not going to take any chances. I wasn't going to be scared of this dean. I just went up to him and said very plainly, I told her the truth. Sorry, it was actually I told her the truth. I told her my situation and how it's been so hard. And I don't know, it worked, I don't even know how. For some luck, something in the universe just worked for me in that incident, because I was just, I think, because I was fighting so hard, that was recognized, and I'm really, really, really grateful for everybody who was around me through that process. The dean for letting me in, all my friends who supported me, like before I got into the program, while I was in the program, they were really rooting for me. Shamin was rooting for me, my sister, my mother, my family. And failure was just not an option.
Support structures keep coming up, and we're going to delve into it in a little bit as well, because it's so important, when you say heart and soul, like strong people don't win in vacuum, right? A privilege alone also doesn't get you there. You need all of these people. And thank you so much for your truth. And it's also interesting, the dean was a female, was it?
Well, there was a male and a female that I needed to speak to, and it really was the female who ended up coming through to me and helping me out. But yeah,
I found that, yes, as I said, with this team, a lot of men have helped me in my life, from my father, to my brother, to the people that have loved me and cared for me, my friends. It's true, but many women, I've found that they've gone out on a leg to help me stand up as well when I felt like I can't. And even today is an example of that, because I don't think a lot of people know, but I couldn't speak up until Jan, from like late October, November, because I had cut a nerve and I couldn't move my tongue. And I didn't even want to do this because I wasn't sure whether I could still enunciate properly, etc. And like Senala was like, no, in my heart, like when I closed my eyes, it was you, and you have like think about this. I really think you can do this, and it's through that encouragement, and even like people like Anjali. I started off as a model with her. She's encouraged me to grow leaps and bounds into other arenas. From me handling models, from me being a talent agent externally, to speaking engagements where she's gone through the material that I want to process, stood behind me, even if we're in fights with clients, to acting. And this one particular line stuck out for me even with Anjali, because a couple of months ago I got offered this position. And I just felt like my CV was enough for it. And Anjali gains nothing from giving me a call. I just told her in passing, and she called me immediately, and she was like, Cubs, my father studied fish, for God's sakes. Don't let a CV hold you back. It's what you have, it's your talent, it's your lived experiences. And for those who don't know, I mean, these are very successful people and who've shown us over and over again that, what society expects you to be doesn't have to define you. And sometimes it's just that one person saying that can change your mind and can challenge your thinking at the very least. And for you, they open doors, and that's why we say that women empower the women, support structures empower women. And I'm so happy for you, Shastini, and your tears. I know it's pain, but I hope it's cathartic as well.
I'm just a very, very high emotion person, so I tend to get a little rattled easily or cry.
I understand. Yeah.
It just comes with the package.
I read all your today I asked give me your key points, right? And you can ask this later on about an hour earlier, which is why I got ready so late as well, because I was trying to put the structure together and I started crying, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to try and get this out of my system so that I can pretend to be professional right now and just get through this.
Really should have had a good cry before, because after our chat yesterday, I thought maybe I'll be okay. But I think today it's the real thing. We're really telling everybody out here our stories, and the fact that, I can share this and that there are people listening, and maybe that we could help out, give some courage to, because I really wish a younger me had that, I really, really do. So thank you.
No, thank you. It's not having answers, right? Like you said, maybe something would stick, no matter how diverse our lives are or how unrelatable we might look like. There might be something in there, right? And even last night, we had our pre-chat, and I really didn't sleep till 5 o'clock because I was just trying to figure out in my mind. Obviously, I was overcome with emotion, but I was okay, I have 2 hours. How am I going to do justice to all of these wonderful, powerful people who are being so vulnerable and putting their lives, their truth out there? Because social media, for example, even as public figures, they see a certain side of our lives. They don't see the flip end of it, or how we got there, or how we're seen as success, so what the journey there is. And this is thank you so much for this, Shastini. And if I can move on to Timo for now, so if that's okay. Yeah, thank you. And I love your background. I love the plants. So Timo, for those who don't know, is my Timo, how do you say this? Scout, discoverer, maestro, creator?
You can call it whatever you want.
Thank you so much. So because we're talking about challenging bias and stereotype, I just want to share with everyone that I had a little bit of modeling experience when I was in England, but it was a whole different structure. I didn't know how to walk in heels. It was also a tokenized, exoticized sort of experience because I just didn't have the skills or the training, but I got in because I was just a brown girl who had features that could be a child of the world, because like some casting calls, would like put me under African mix, Filipino mix, Indian mix, whatever. And at that point, I was like too stupid to understand. Not stupid, I was ignorant because I was young as well. Because I thought, oh, I'm a child of the world, and I wasn't. I was taking up space when I didn't belong there. I was benefiting off of certain white passing privilege, for example, that my hair is curly, but not so curly that they can't handle it, right? And basically, I had no training, I had no skills, and I was in a volunteer show. And I still remember you looking at me afterwards and being like, you have talent, you have potential. And it was just like this person who saw it was like, I will do this. And I was like, really? I can't even walk. And yeah, he was so upfront and honest with me, even about stereotypes that exist. You said, you're too short. You are not going to win this pageant that I'm going to ask you to go for, but I think you will do very well. And I think, we can, create something for you. Because at that point, I was like bleeding money. I had no income because I was trying to set up a social enterprise, which was successful for about 2 years. And all my savings was going to that. And you were like, you can get paid through this, right? I was like, I can make money. Okay, now I'm listening. But the thing was like, it's the truth. My original drive for the whole thing was just when you said I can get paid, I was like, okay, I need money. Let's do this, But the thing is, like, I never imagined that I could model in Sri Lanka. It wasn't like even a thing that was in my head. I mean, forget like earlier I said, like I had like ingrained bias towards being a model when I started off because I didn't want to acknowledge that. I would always be like, I have a background in law, I have a social enterprise, blah, blah, blah. Even when the only thing that was getting me an income was modeling, thanks to you. And I wouldn't say it because I was so prejudicial against modeling and that stereotype that was like in my head. But before that, when you approached me, I was just like, I didn't see myself as worthy of being a model in Sri Lanka. I thought there's no way in hell. I mean, pardon my English French, but I really didn't think that I would have any chance at all, given the way that I thought I looked like. And so thank you so much. There wouldn't be a Kalpani here talking to all of you today without Timo, because modeling did actually give me that platform. And then from there, as I said, people like Anjali, people who come along and like have helped me, like Stefan, have really added to my life. And I can't imagine what my life would look like without all of you people. So thank you so much. And yeah, so what is your relationship? You're always like considered the perfect being. Like I see your pictures floating around even in like my gal pal groups, and they're just like, he's so beautiful. And I'm like, he is.
Thank you very much. And it's actually my pleasure because I remember watching you walking because I was seated with Maurice, if I'm not mistaken. And she looked at me and we both were staring at you like properly. And she said, oh my God, this girl is good. And I turned around and said, you got my mind. I thought the same. And then of course, I got up and I actually started communicating with you. And I thought, okay, this girl has so many things going on. It's not that her look is good. Not only the look is good, but it's also the personality coming behind with it. And yeah, and I thought like what I felt within you was your aura. What I saw there is very much out of that room, like meaning like it was so powerful that I reached it. The people who are outside of it reached it. It was so much powerful and like it's so huge, and it showed within your eyes and the way you spoke and everything. I think that's what I look into when I talk to, when I see anyone, because if I don't get that vibe, I wouldn't even make a second communication word or something like that. So I think it's meant to happen at that time. And I'm glad you're here. And like I said, like you can scout anyone. I say that all the time, but personal dedication And success doesn't come that easy for everyone. You have to work hard for it, and you have proved it right. And thank you for doing it, and thank you for inspiring everyone with your journey.
Thank you for being instrumental. Thank you for inspiring me. Hashtag thank you. We have this internal joke that I thanked Timo too much apparently, and so yeah, now we just go hashtag.
I call you. Thank you.
Yeah, hashtag thank you. And Timo, so what is your journey? How did you become this? What you were the most beautiful man in India or something of the sort? These magazines you're constantly rated as the most attractive man and all of that. So how is that? How is your journey?
Okay, journey meaning I never thought to be a model. I never thought of being a model. So even fashion designing happened in a way because first of all, I wanted to become an engineer. That's why I studied. Went into math scheme when I was in A levels, but unfortunately, unlike others, I couldn't do chemistry. Chemistry wasn't going into my ears at all. So I had to go into commerce, and I actually didn't know where should I lead from there. I have been to many interviews, like which includes dialogue to Mobitel to everywhere, like start to somewhere, but it didn't like properly like get that vibe, or it didn't feel right. And then my cousin's husband said, okay, well, do you like to do fashion designing? Why not? Like, and then I started like researching about it, and like I actually quite liked it because looking at it, it's not the same thing, but it obviously when a person researches it, you see the glam part of it, but not the hard work stuff going behind it. So then I started doing the design course, and little by little, they also started using me. The school itself started using me for like small like pictures, like for their just say like if the senior student is doing like a project in menswear section, they will ask me, oh, would you like to come in and like drop in? They need to do a fit on and a portfolio, this blah blah blah. So it started from there. I didn't take it as a serious thing, and little by little became a bit serious. And yeah, that's how I'm here. But telling to it, I've always told you, like, if I do something, I would like to do it in the best way, or try to do it again and again in a perfect way where until it comes good. So the moment it started to getting a bit more serious, I started to play a bit more harder when it comes to physics, play a bit more harder about research, knowledge about who and who is who around locally and internationally, where what is the proper key, and what are the pageants, what are the fashion brands, to like everything I had to learn, because I'm not from a fashion oriented background. So I'm sure most of you all know I'm from a very typical Tamil family. So we had zero when it comes to fashion. So so it was quite hard though, because language was a barrier. Like, although I could speak in Sinhalese, English wasn't our first language. So I think it's still, I do make mistakes. What do you say? Eventually I got to know that as long as I know how to communicate with a person with English, that's important. And it's also another, everyone is saying that we have got independence into 1948, but we still haven't got it yet. I think we still think in that white man's mentality where we have to speak like proper English, and like even the looks. Some people like, just for an example, like I went for one of my really good friends' personal birthday party, and the mother's explaining like how she's a golf player. She's explaining how these white men and women come to her and ask, oh my God, your eyes are so beautiful and light. And is it contact lenses? It's almost like dark people shouldn't have light eyes. Like, come on. And we can't have fancy names. What is this? So it's a constant battle. I'm sure, like we always challenge everything in our life, and this is still being challenged. And yeah, it goes on. So eventually, like I think there's a time that I have to move on as well, and that's when I made the decision with the agency to say that I want to coach more people than just being just a model, because even still when people say like, oh, he's that model, and I get very shy, like internally, it's like, it's almost like internal homophobia, like it's internally like putting myself down, oh my God, why would they say that? And I feel very shy. I become red or sometimes purple to another extent. So it's quite hard for me as well. Like, but the thing is, like, what people don't understand is models are well educated, although we think they are not. Just because you don't get to communicate with them like you do with the other stars, like actors and actresses, we also come with like knowledge, brain, and sometimes some of us can speak like several languages which you wouldn't know, and there are things that you have to know more about models. Not only models, there are designers, there are stylists, there are makeup artists, there are fitness experts. They have so much of knowledge. Like I think I highlighted it yesterday with Kalpani and the rest of the team members over here. Like I have heard people saying that, oh, this person have like a personality of a plant, like, because people have said that to me, so I understand how it feels. It's really hard when someone say it, but I want to ask each and everyone who says that complete sentence, are you making an interesting what do you say, uh, an interesting story to talk to this person? If that story is not interesting, obviously that person is not going to communicate with you back. So that doesn't make him no personality or a person who doesn't have a personality. If you try to make a conversation which is common to them, obviously they will communicate with you back. And there you can see, like, it's what I have to say is like, there's a Tamil proverb by we are saying like "Kattadu kayyalavu kalladadu ulagalavu." That means like what you learn is very handful, what you don't learn, what you haven't learned, or what you not know that you have to learn is like the size of a universe. So there is a lot more to learn. Just because you know a little bit, that doesn't mean that make another person less. You can share. Like sharing is obviously makes you learn even more if you understand that part. And yeah, anything else you want me to add? I think I went a bit too far.
No, not at all. I also want to ask, but you are an LGBTIQ activist. You are an out and proud gay man, and you live that truth. And also, when it comes to the body, we've spoken of it in the sense of, because that's the intersectionality. Women's bodies are policed, but so are bodies that are not considered typically masculine either, and we intersect there. And you've spoken about, let's say nude art, or the body as a form, as an art, and how it gets policed. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know you speak of this often, but just for today as well.
So first of all, I just a tiny bit, I just want to highlight a little bit. Like I quite hate the notion of out and proud part, because just because not a straight person will go out and say that they are straight. I don't see a point of a part of an LGBTIQ person who's from the community have to go and wave the flag and say we are this. Of course, yes, it's understandable that community needs recognition, but on the other hand, everyone is having that luxury of living themselves. Doesn't mean it can be encouraging for some people, but being encouraging can ruin some lives. So we have to think about that as well. So that part, that's why I have left a lot of organization which I used to work with locally, because they were constantly pushing me to promote the fact that out and proud part, which I didn't agree. to a certain
Thank you.
extent.
Yeah, thank you for correcting me. I'm also learning. Thank you so much for that.
And okay, yes, let's talk about body now. So obviously, you know, I'm uh, not the most manly, according to the notion of Sri Lanka or generally as a human mental idea. So this is actually started when I was from school itself. I remember this fact. Like I walked past in my cousin's house, and then my cousin's aunt or someone was there, and like, why is he walking like this? Like, and then I heard it, and then I went to the kitchen, and and she still continued to start talking about it and say, it's him. Okay, that means like, okay, so they have like put a label there saying that, oh, it's him. You know, I hope you understand what I said. Like, and then I was like, what did I do? Like, if it's my younger cousin, they wouldn't have said. If it's my elder cousin, but what was wrong there? Like, I honestly didn't realize anything there. And then it was in my mind, and then go on, and then I started to look into the mirror myself. I mean, like my body. It's like, and it was there was a time I was extremely, meaning like not to an extent too big, but I felt a bit chubby during the study A-level time, because I wasn't in shape because I've stopped sports and everything. So obviously, best food in the world, mother's food. So you eat and just study. So it, I saw the effect of it, and I wanted to lose it very fast, and then I lost way too much. And while I was in fashion school, I was actually very skinny, extremely skinny. And then obviously, when someone get into like a very good relationship, you the first of it, you try to be too happy, and like it shows in your body, and it showed. And to a point where this person came to me and like, oh my god, are you actually going to do that photo shoot like this? And I was like, oh shit. And it's I don't know, like obviously everyone is going to have opinions, but in this instant it hit me too hard. Like I maybe I thought too much. Like it was like a constant battle of like how fit I'm going to be, how do you say, how to be like projecting myself perfect. Like it drove me nuts for like almost 5 to 6 years. Like to a point, I think I shared it with many people in social media, saying that once I was selected for Arugambi, and I had a big pile of kottu. And the next, like in like 15 minutes, I'm getting a call saying that, okay, you're shooting for Arugambi tomorrow. They are going to pick you up in this time. You're going to call. So obviously, me knowing having the big lump of food, I went and puked. I mean, you know, the early stage of I don't want to highlight the names, you know. So it was there with me, although I didn't want to show it to many people. I had that problem. Like whenever I eat too much, I think too much, and like sometimes I thrown up. Many times I've thrown up, and I thought it is a healthy way. So I thought, but it isn't. It actually gave me a lot of side effects, like meaning not to a bad extent. If I continued after not realizing it, it could have gone worse. I could have got really bad. But I made this decision in 2016, thankfully. Like I looked into myself and I said, okay, I'm going to stop this for a month and see what is going to happen. And it continued for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and now I'm actually going to do a TikTok on this. Basically, like almost like before what I'm going to do, and like now what I will be doing, I'll be like eating like Nutellas with like biscuits if I'm going for a photo shoot. Like it's I think how you look and how confident you look, it's to do with your mental capacity. opposed to, obviously it does give you a little bit of a confidence and the physique when you go to the gym and do this, obviously it does, but the thing is, don't go too much. There is a limit for everything. When it comes to social media backlash and shaming you, I'm getting to the point now. So everyone has that notion of man should look like a man, woman should look like a woman. Manly body is this, a women's body is this. And there is no in between. It's black and white, no gray scales. That's the mindset of everyone. But I really want to break it all. I'm sure I would be the first person to do the nude art shoots for international photographers from Sri Lanka fashion field. There could have been bodybuilders who would have done it before, but many models, when I started doing it, was questioning whether they had to do it or not. Then I thought, okay, no, I'm doing it because I want to break the barriers. That's what I always do. Because it's like everyone said like, oh, you're going to lose jobs, which I did, obviously, which I did because some of the people thought like that I'm not way too open to the public with my body and stuff. But on the other hand, they didn't understand what the message, what I'm trying to say. It's not only what I shared is just showcasing my body. It's also to do with how comfortable you can be in any size, shape, or if you don't have to be masculine to show off your body. You don't have to be. If I'm a feminine person, my body is not the most masculine body you could say, or the most feminine body. Maybe there may be so much of spectrum. I don't know where I fall into, and I don't care if I fall into the higher feminine section or male to manly section. I don't care because it's my body and I start to loving it by myself. That's what I want to promote. Like, you can be anything. You can be big, you can be small. Like I constantly, my battle with Anjali most of the time is like, why can't we like have a bit more darker or a bit more fair, a bit more this and a bit more that. I told her like, if I can place a seed anywhere in Anjali or Kosh or someone, I always do. And like I've been telling them so many things, and thankfully they are the ones who made me feel so comfortable when I started doing these things. There were times Anjali said, okay, you may have to hold on, and then next time she said, I like what you do. I think you should continue doing it. And I'm so grateful because not every manager or every model agencies would say that, because there will be like restrictions. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you do. But the thing is, like with them, like they don't care what you look like or what your personal life matters. But there are people before I work with have said like, oh, you have to be a bit more like conservative about your sexuality because of this, because of that, because of I have been like, why should I be like, I've never been closed about it, including my parents. Like, I never came out. Like, that's what I said. Like, I'm very against that being outward because actually my mother found out because she went through my FB. Doesn't mean that, but we spoke about it afterwards, like what it was. And her own words were like, at that time, for name's sake, I had a girlfriend first. So she said like, okay, if you want to get through life, either choose one or don't put your foot into both. That made me feel comfortable. I'm not going to say like every mothers or fathers are like that, but the thing is like, choose your path. Like the process of you trying to figuring out shouldn't hurt another person. It can be a male or a female. Okay, everyone had made mistakes before, but maybe me talking about it now can you can realize it, and then not make the same mistake. Maybe like people make mistakes, so it's okay. Just be yourself. Just that's the own idea about body and like coming out part. I hope I answered the question. Right?
Thank you so much, Timo. And I want to move on to Natalie, but quickly before we do, I just want to ask Shasini. We had this very interesting conversation the first time I met you about modeling. And you were saying of how you casted when you were very young, because this was something that was thrown onto you constantly, right? Be a model, be a model, be a model. And yet, when you did cast, you didn't get a favorable response, and that made you very insecure.
Yeah, actually. So I was 18 or 19. I was just, fresh out of school. And I thought, they're calling me for this thing. I'm, I'm about to go to uni. Who cares? Let me just go see what it's about. And then I went, and the casting director said that I was just too manly. My face was too manly looking, that my jaw was too like square on camera. And even though I look nice, that I really could never ever be a model because of my jaw and my facial structure, which to an 18, 19-year-old is just like, okay, I'm just this horrible, ugly sack of a person. You're very impressionable. You're so insecure. You're figuring yourself out. You're figuring your life out. And that just like, that was it. I was like, I'm never trying this again. I'm never, ever, ever going to attempt it. I don't care how much I love fashion and appreciate the art of modeling. I'm just never going to try. And it was much later. It was even after I graduated. I think it was about 2014 at 24 was when I first modeled for real, for real. And I think I made that decision because at that time I was working at the hospital, and I was again thinking about how finite everything is. We're not going to be here one day. Your life ends. If there's something that's important to you and there's something that you want to do, you have to do it. Stop worrying about other people when you're dying, or like when you're at the end of your life. It doesn't matter. None of these other people, what they'd say to you, in the long run, it doesn't matter. And I think it was truly being around people who were at the end of their lives and actively dying that really, really, really gave me that push, saying, if there's anything you want to do, you just do it, because this is all going to end. And it has to be worth it, right? Being here. And then that's when I started modeling. I was in Pittsburgh. There was a company called ModCloth. I got called in for a casting. I did some like e-commerce. My best friend Sean actually just pushed me. He was like, Shas, you got to do it. You got to go. And I'm so thankful that he did. And then after that, I think the biggest thing was Radhika, Tanuja's sister. She's a designer and she was in New York at that time. Because I had done this e-commerce gig. Radhika was looking for models for a fashion show and then for New York Fashion Week. And, I still remember thinking for weeks, like, oh my God, should I message her and say that I want to do this? Am I brave enough to do this? Do I have the confidence to do it? And then I reached out to her and she was so supportive and, really gave me a gateway into, I was in New York Fashion Week, which is crazy because I was this insecure girl to begin with. And I couldn't believe that she had faith to have me there to represent her brand, because it's such an achievement for her to be there. And then she thought that I was good enough to do that. And I think that's what really kind of started getting the ball rolling. And then I came here and got more work. And yeah, that's that's the story.
Amazing. Yeah, it's interesting because your whole life you're told you're beautiful. And then when you actually do go to do that, then you're told something else. And something else that you said resonated with me as well, because when Timo spoke to me, at that point, I was 26 because I modeled between 20 and 21. And when I was in England, and I never took it seriously. And like after Timo spoke to me, as I said, like first I was just like, okay, creative outlet, I might be able to earn money, and I love it to begin with. And then like when I started getting more serious about it, so I was like, do I really want to be that person who's going to look back? And at that point, I thought I was going to be married at some point and have kids immediately. I was like, do I really want to tell my grandchildren, I was offered this opportunity twice, once in England, and then with Timo, and I turned it down, and I was like, why? I absolutely enjoy this, but as I mentioned earlier, it took me a long time still to work through my head and to give it the importance and to see it as a radical act and to see how important it is just to be represented and to be out there. But yeah, and I think Natalia has a lot to add to that as well. Um, so Natalia, lawyer, model, pageant title holder, body is very involved in your life. That's your on mute.
Sorry, I had to log in from my phone as well because my laptop's about to die. I've been under the microscope a lot, and what a lot of people don't realize is that it's been really hard for me to get to a place where I've put myself out there. Cubs, you know this, I've struggled so much in my teen years and I guess my early 20s, with my mental health. And something like self-esteem and confidence was, I didn't have any, so much so that I struggled with a big problem with self-harm, which is to be honest, that's how much I valued my body, that I would physically hurt it. And it was really difficult because so many people would look at me and just be like, oh, you're a pretty girl, why are you doing this to yourself? Almost as if like, oh, you look a certain way, so you shouldn't have any problems, like, how are you broken, like why are you hurting, like, um, why are you wasting your life like this, and it was really hard. And then to have gone from that to just being like, okay, you know what, screw this, like I'm not going to be this broken person anymore, and looking for a way to kind of like, reinvent the way people looked at me, to get them to take me seriously and not see me as some, poor little wreck that's done for. It wasn't easy. And I remember when Anjali approached me, like the first thing that crossed my mind is, oh God, like, no, I can't do this. Even though I had, from a very young age, I think from like the age of 4, I had been in front of a camera. I had done multiple TV commercials, I had done a bit of modeling. But when Anjali approached me, it was at such a time in my life that like, I found it really hard to believe, that I could put myself out there. But like you said, I wanted to study, I needed the money, and, this seemed like a really good opportunity. So I did it, at that point, I did it for the sake of funding my education. I never really took myself seriously as a model, so much so that even to put it in my bio, I was just like, do you have to say model? Can't you say something else? Because it's also kind of frowned upon here in this country. And I had to break through a lot of barriers in my mind to put myself out there, with my scars and all. Being in front of a camera, making myself vulnerable. Like, every time I do my hair and makeup, if it's a new client, they'll always ask me, oh, what happened to your hand? Was it a bad breakup? Was it a love affair? And just, all those really awkward questions that you don't really need to ask someone to their face. But, I pushed past and I did it. And it really helped me, um, build my self-esteem. It was kind of like an outlet, a different person. And at the same time, when I moved into doing like the pageants and stuff, it put me under a completely different microscope. And even there, like I went for it because I'd broken through this barrier in my mind where I was like, you know what, yeah, I had a troubled past, but I'm not going to let that define me, And I wanted, when I went for the pageants, like I really wanted to change the perception of like what they thought was beautiful, because in the pageant industry, like beauties, it's very stereotypical, it's very superficial the way they look at it, despite like all their slogans of beauty with a purpose and confidently beautiful and all of that. When you actually get there, like it's literally a bunch of girls like putting you under a microscope, and you find insecurities about yourself that you didn't even know you had before. And I went in with this mindset that I'm gonna prove a different kind of beauty, that you can be broken, you can be flawed, you can overcome it, and still be beautiful. Like it's okay that I have all these scars, it's okay that I've been through all of this, because that's not me now. but it hasn't always, turned out like that. People really do judge you as a person by what they see, and for me, people look at my hand, they look at my scars, and they're like, oh, she's crazy, or why would you do that to yourself? You're such a pretty girl. Almost as if you look a certain way, you're not allowed to have a certain mindset. You're a fair pretty girl, so you should have it all figured out. Like, what do you need to worry about? What did you have to be depressed about, to do this to yourself? Just so much lack of like awareness. And now I'm a model, and there's a whole different ball game now of how I look. Like, oh, you're a model. People immediately think, just because you're a model, you can't be intelligent, you can't be educated. um, the most frequent asked question that I get is, oh, how's the modeling going? What have you been up to? Any shoots? How's the modeling going? And I'm like, I've been killing myself in law school and working at a law firm now. But oh, really? Oh, you did law? Oh, you didn't look that smart. Like, okay, so because I'm a fair, pretty girl in Sri Lanka, it's not very possible for me to, be intelligent, to be a lawyer. I'm pretty sure Sush gets this a lot as well. They just look at you and they talk down to you until you're almost like, yeah, like there is something on top here as well. And it's really frustrating because you constantly feel like you have something to prove. I know personally that I chose to be in this field because it was very empowering. And for me, coming from such a broken place, I felt that it was something that I could really build myself up with. And even now I feel like so many times like I use it as a sense of uh, putting myself out there as like a powerful person, as someone who's not weak, because now I come like someone who physically looked at me would take one look at my hand and just be like, oh yeah, she's crazy, like she's a troubled child or a troubled woman. And it's been tough, putting myself out there. People don't really realize, like, when they see you in all those nice pictures, that there's an actual person behind there. There's someone who's like struggled a lot and has broken through so much, and which is why I wanted to do this segment today, because it was challenge your thinking. And I know for a fact the only reason I've gotten this far is because I had to challenge my thinking. Forget everything that everyone else was thinking around me. The way they think, it does get to you, after a certain point, and it kind of puts up these, like, assumptions and barriers in your head. I remember before going for the pageants, like, even like my family was just like, oh, what are you going to do about your scars? Like, how are you going to hide them? And I would be so like conscious about it, right? And until I went there, and I'm just like, what, like, screw it, I don't care anymore. Like, I'm here, I'm representing my country, like, this is me. Like, there are people like me as well, some people who fell off the wagon for a point in time, but have got back on the horse and like are working their way to becoming, like, better people every day. And it's not easy. There are good days, there are bad days. I wake up every morning and I tell myself that I'm going to challenge myself today, to think differently, to think that I can do it. Every time I feel like I can't, or every time I tell myself, no, there's no way you're going to get that job. Like, they're not going to go for you. It's not going to work. They're going to see your scars and they're going to be like, oh yeah, you can't do it. I'm just like, no, I'm going to try anyway. If they reject me, well, can't help. um so yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say about body. How you look a certain way and people assume you're going to be a certain way, like Grace said yesterday in our pre-chat, like, people look at her and they can't understand why someone who's big like her can be so confident, right? They just don't get that. It's weird to them. At the same time, they look at, like, people like me and Shasini, and they consider us, the fair pretty girls who make great wives someday, and they're like, oh, it's so shocking, that they're smart. And it's just this constant, like, it's a constant stigma and these biases that we've like surrounded ourselves with, and eventually they do get into our heads as well, and we have to break past it. We have to start thinking differently, you know, for ourselves. Going back to like what Grace said, like, you know, waking up in the morning and trying to find 5 things you like about yourself. It's hard. It's a lot harder than you look, because, you know, as much as it shouldn't be that way, it's just how it is. You know, we also bring ourselves down a lot based on, you know, what we're surrounded by and what we're exposed to, and sometimes from a very young age, even like school, you know. I remember in school as well, you know, I was also portrayed as one of those frisky children who had no interest in education, because, you know, I was that fair girl, the burger girl, and they just always assumed I had no interest. But, you know, I worked twice as hard to basically have good grades, you know, and just constantly prove that point that, you know, I wasn't just a pretty face, that, you know, I was also intelligent. Um, and I know after this you wanted to move into talking about mind. Uh, so you already know my story, you know, how I've struggled. I've battled depression and anxiety, you know, at a very turbulent time in my life. Adolescence was not easy for me. My teen years were like not great, you know, and that going into my early 20s was which is a very impressionable age. Everyone looked at me like, you know, some train wreck, the poor girl, you know, who had her whole life ahead of her, but, you know, it's just all down the drain now, you know. And it wasn't easy coming out of that. And my self-harm had gotten to like such a terrible point also, that, you know, I had zero value for myself at that point. I didn't care how deep the cuts were. I didn't care how many stitches I would get. Now I look back and think, oh shit, if I had known I was going to be a model, I never would have done that. Imagine all the skin lotion ads I could have gotten then, you know. I look back and I think, what the hell was I thinking? But, you know, I was in that hole. I didn't care at that point, you know. I didn't see myself being in this place, because, you know, when you're in a situation like that, and the things people tell you at times like that, getting the right kind of help, especially in this country, it's not always easy. And I think, I'm like you said when we started, privilege on the table. I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by people who were intelligent enough, like my family, to realize this child needs help, you know, and they at least tried to get that help for me. And but coming out of it was a decision that I had to make, you know. It was those were barriers that I had to break in my mind, that, you know, I'm not going to let this consume me. Like, you know, I'm going to get my shit together. Like, I'm still going to have hopes and dreams, and I'm going to fulfill them, you know. And it's been hard. There are still so many bad days where I doubt myself, and I'm like, oh my God, like, why do I think I'm superwoman and I can do all these things? You know, I can't be a model and a lawyer and 100 different other things. Like, you know, I need to pick one. And then I'm like, no, why should I? You know, why can't I be all these things if I wanted to? And those are all the insecurities you kind of go back to, because people put you in boxes, right? And they say, this is what you can be, this is what you can't be. You look like this, so you probably think like this, or you think like this, so you're probably going to look like this. They're all stereotypes at the end of the day. And I'm determined to break them and keep breaking them, you know. Not just for me physically, being the pageant girl with 150 scars in a bikini on stage in front of hundreds of people, thousands of people, I would say, watching you, to, you know, being the lawyer who, you know, once upon a time, or a few times upon a time, you know, tried to kill herself and didn't see any value in her life whatsoever. um, and, you know, even now, like, you know, I'm sure most of you know, I come from like a multi-religious family, and right now I'm in interfaith relationship, which is also a huge stereotype, you know. And we spoke about how, like, relationships, they are the soul you need, you know, to get by. For me, it's obviously my spirituality, my faith. That is how I feed my soul, and obviously the people around me, the people I love and like I care about. And even that, it's just become another huge, you know, stereotype. Like, oh my God, you're going into this marriage like it's going to end in disaster. you're from two different faiths, like, no good end will come of this. It's just been from, I think, the day like we ever decided, we were serious, people would constantly just like frown at us, because that's just how they see it. Like, they don't think that two people could be happy together, because that's the stereotype, that's what's been happening for years. But even with that, I've told myself, no, I'm going to challenge my thinking. Like, I'm going to challenge the fact that, despite what everyone else has to say, I think I can be happy with this person. My relationship is built on love and mutual respect, not from the fact that we're from two different faiths. And fortunately, I've had a family around me, my parents, my sister is Muslim and she's married to a Muslim, and we don't love her any differently. We don't treat her any differently. And it's been the same with me, just challenging those stereotypes and challenging your thinking and saying, no, I'm not going to think like that. That doesn't have to be my story. My story doesn't have to end that way. I'm going to make my own way. So yeah, I think you're going to bounce back to Tanuja now.
Thank you so much. Sushmita unfortunately has to leave us right now, and obviously the big panel, it's hard to navigate time. Sushmita, what we'll do is I'll speak to Women Empowered and the audience, if you're still with us, we'll bring Sushmita back on one of these days on a one-on-one, and we'll finish the sections that we couldn't, so that we can at least upload it when we are uploading the rest of the recording, if that's okay, Sushmita.
So sorry, guys. I have
no worries, of course. So she'll be a part of our paid chat as well. And I just want to ask, because Women Empower Global wants the audience to challenge something, and they want to know what you're going to challenge. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. Did the conversation from yesterday or today add anything, or have you made any, I don't know, has the wheels turned in your head for something or the other?
You're asking me what I would like people to challenge in their thinking, or like
what are you choosing to challenge? So you can say I'm Sushmita Vijayratna and I choose to challenge. It's a little sound bite now.
Right. Okay. So I'm Sushmita Vijayratna and I choose to challenge people to stop judging someone by their looks. So Nati, Shasini spoke about it, Grace spoke about it too. About how people think because you look a certain way, you can't be XYZ. So yeah, I challenge people to get to know someone first before judging them based on knowing nothing about their personal lives.
Thank you, Sush. Do you have like 2 minutes? If you do, I would love to know about your mind and your heart and soul. So then we don't have to bring you back if you have 2 minutes.
Okay, I don't know how to like sum it all up. What would you like me to say?
No, we'll bring you back. We're definitely bringing you back because depth and conversation. So you and I will have a chat on maybe Instagram, and we'll upload it along with the rest of the recording. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Sorry, I had to leave.
Of course.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Good night.
Good night. Tanuja, as we get on to you, I would also like to speak to Grace concurrently. And Timo brought this conversation up, and I think Shasini has experienced this, and Natalie, you've spoken about this on and off. Our relationship with food. And so, Tanuja, I would like to delve into that with you as well, because you do have a brand which caters towards food and ensuring that people receive the kind of nutrition that they need, and how those things are connected as well. And before we get on to that, I also wanted to with Natalie, I just want to say that thank you so much for everything that you said. And again, like, I've been on the flip side because I've constantly been told, why are you modeling? You're so smart. You have a background in law. Why aren't you a lawyer? Why are you doing this? And it's like constantly, I have to create space to be like, no, I can be beautiful too. I can be all of these things. I can be smart and pretty, or what it is. And yesterday's thing with Deepak, he also asked this question where why can't one be the jack of all trades? Why isn't anyone looking at Jack and thinking that Jack has an art form of balancing all of these trades? Maybe he's not the master, but maybe there is mastery in the balance of it all, and looking at the cross, realities of all of these trades that he's in. So I very much resonated with that. And also this thing of expecting people to be in the same place they were in. I've gone through major depression. I also have, a chronic illness, which originally was seen as a heart disease, and then it, got worse. And at one point, it was really debilitating because I would be in and out of hospital. And I do have people who ask me this thing of where I'm supposed to be stagnated in one place, where they're shocked for some reason. It's like, oh, I see you out and about, and you're modeling and all of that, but I thought you had all of these issues. And I'm like, I have the issues, and I can be doing these other things as well. I have good days and bad days. Maybe I challenge my thinking to get to a place where I can do all of these things. And even with depression, it's like, it's expected to be like this thing that, you cannot escape. You're, like you said, you're done. You're this girl who had a breakdown, in my case, and disappeared for 3 months. Long story, but during my final year, I thought it was 3 weeks when it had been 3 months. A friend flew in because my parents couldn't find me, and they had to break down my door to get inside. And I was still I thought it was just a couple of weeks. And that's how lost I was. But then it was this thing they don't talk about mental health. And like you said, privilege, right? I fortunately had the access, the resources to afford the help that I needed, and to move beyond it and grow out of it and treat it like any other illness. But I'm constantly expected to be there. Or now that I'm a model, it's like what you said, it's like, so are you still doing the modeling thing? And have you done your shoes recently? Oh, it's COVID, right? You clearly must not have work. And I'm like, well, I do other things, other than being a model. Maybe I get an income out of doing that. And it's just these boxes that people expect us to live in. So I really appreciate that. And that thing you said about you wake up every day and you choose to challenge yourself, because sometimes I wake up and my bones they feel like a weight, and as if I'm burning inside. And some days I decide, okay, I'm going to rest out because that's what my body needs. Some days I'm like, it's okay. Even if it's for an hour, I'm going to do the hours worth of work and then rest. I'm going to do what I can. And it's a constant challenging and renegotiating. And like what Shasini said about our bodies can take so much, our minds can take so much. It's about being in tune with that and not going to a breaking point, but seeing what you can do with all of that. So thank you very much for sharing that and for being an inspiration. And also in terms of love and relationships, we'll talk a bit more about with the others as well. And thank you so much. So in terms of food, I just want to ask all of you, but to start with Tanuja, what is the relationship between food, mind, body, and how women are seen? Because this food, whether it's you're able to make the parikula, like Shasini said, or what you eat, you're constantly policed and judged for it, right? And Sushmita and I were talking, and it's hashtag salad life, or that's what's expected of us. So what is your take on it, Tanuja?
Well, for me, I started a healthy food company because a big part of my business is weight loss programs, and I found that in this country, a lot of people were overweight and not understanding how they could lose weight, and not understanding that weight loss actually has a lot to do with what you're consuming, even more so than how you're training. It's how you're fueling yourself that contributes to how your body is reacting. So I started the healthy food company, and I don't consider it diet food. It's not, just a salad that I'm giving people. I just wanted to show people that eating nutritionally balanced meals, there is no restriction. There are carbs in our meals, there are proteins in the meals, fats in the meals, showing people that it's having this sort of well-rounded way of eating is just a more sustainable way of eating for the rest of your life. I don't believe in fad diets. I don't believe in ketos and, all of these sort of extreme ways of eating. I just think that if you eat sensibly, if you eat nutritionally balanced, well proportioned meals, that's just a more sustainable way of eating for the rest of your life. And obviously have your cheat days and eat what you want too. It's like we're human beings, and food is a pleasure in life. You should be able to eat your ice cream and your pizza and, gorge out and whatever you want to. It shouldn't always just be that you have to restrict yourself and never enjoy food, because that's no fun either.
Thank you, Tanuja. Team, I know you spoke about this, and thank you for your honesty. Grace, you are a food reviewer, and there's an aspect there as well, right?
Yeah, so like a lot of us spoke about being put in boxes, right? I'm a person who have like diploma in law, in psychology, in sorry, in drama. It's always and I was doing another degree as well. So it's always like this weird head tilt, like, oh, you're doing law as well? Weren't you doing something else? And I'm like, I was, and I graduated, but I'm doing this, and I've been doing this for a while. And then, it's almost like, oh, okay. So what about your writing then? Like, you don't write anymore? Like, like obviously there are periods in my life where I am more like in my writing element, right? And right now with my law college exams, I'm more in my law college element. But it's never like in my being, I'm still very much that person who's doing all of those things. But how time progresses, like you give priority to different things, right? And that's just how it is. And being a content creator, don't like the word influencer, but being a content creator and being a foodie, being a person who likes food, loves traveling, and my way of experiencing culture is also through food, right? And for me, that is a big part of who I am. And fortunately, unfortunately, I'm also a plus size person, right? So especially when we were doing reviews like 2-3 times a week, and I was also like working out 6 times a week at the same time. There were instances where I had to take a step back from certain reviews because I was concerned for my health, right? But there were times I still went for these events and I still ate mindfully, but of course took pictures with like 7 dishes, right? I mean, anyone with basic logic would understand that a normal human being is not going to eat 7 different dishes of pasta just because you go to a pasta opening, like if you go to one of these events, sometimes you don't serve it for yourself. They have the whole thing spread it out and they're introducing these new dishes, and that's how it is. And you get to pick one dish or whatever, and then you try that. That's just usually how it is, depending on the type of setup, right? And I've gotten messages like, oh my God, no wonder you're so fat. It's all this free food you get. And it's like, there's also fat shaming. But what I found most interesting is, company, this sense of jealousy that people have towards people who get free food. First of all, if you've ever been out with anybody who takes pictures of food, You speak to any food photographer, you speak to any person who does content creation, especially in terms of food and lifestyle. Our food is cold when we are done, okay? By the time we actually eat it, and when I go out with my friends, especially when I used to do events all the time, I'm just so happy to eat a damn burger or like eat a slice of pizza without taking a picture of it, right? Because to everyone else, going out and eating is a social event. For us, it's work, right? I mean, now with COVID and everything, like, events are so scarce, right? With the Easter attack, since the Easter attack, I think, like, a lot of the things got canceled, a lot of the brands pulled out in terms of working, and it picks up, it gets canceled again, and, things like that, right? But before that, we used to have events like, even on Thursdays. There were Thursdays where I had 3 events, right? It was nuts. And we do, yes, it's fun, and it's like, we get to hang out with like really fun people, we get like, all of that, but it's also, it tests you even more because it's very easy to eat clean when you go to gym, go to work, come home, and you cook your food, right? It's a lot easier. But when your work revolves around food, and you're supposed to literally taste it for work as well, and people pay you for that, it's a lot harder, right? And at the same time, um, when I speak about, like, someone asks me like, okay, what do you have plans for the weekend, or like what are you doing? And then I mentioned like gym, like, especially boxing, and which is something I really liked after I left school. After I stopped playing water polo, boxing was the other sport, though I didn't compete professionally. Like, it was one thing that I always was 100% committed to. And people always do that head tilt again, and they're just like, oh, you box? Really? Wow, okay. And then there's just like almost confusion. It's like, why you still fat, And then, like, it's not even like genuine curiosity. It's just that, but you're fat, like, you can't be fit. Like, there is no way in hell you can plank for more than a minute if you're like over like 70, 80 kilos. But that's not the case, right? But like, people just refuse to believe it. They refuse to, like, I don't know if you saw this happening last year. I used to do synchronized swimming in school, and I was in a pool like last September in Goa with a bunch of my friends, and one of them had a drone, so they took a video of me doing like a water ballet leg routine, right? Just like a small snippet, and I posted it because I missed that self of me so much, that self of me from school, and I was just so excited to do that after so long, so many years. And of course, few people may say, saying, wow, this is really cool. Like, it's not something a lot of people can do. And of course, I had like these haters saying, oh, it's like looking at an elephant in a circus, and like all these like totally random, hateful things. And, more colorful things also, like to telling me to kill myself because, like, I don't know what the hell you're doing drowning in a pool. Like, first of all, I'm a swimmer, right? Like, I played water sports my whole life, so I wouldn't drown even if I wanted to, right? And like all these like totally unnecessary hateful comments, and like Sushmita said, and like Natalie said, people often forget that there are actual people behind these screens, actual people in these sports. And I'm not asking anyone to compliment me every day, sending me good morning messages, right? Please don't. Like, saying like things, but it's just, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything. But no, that's not the case. When you're in the public sphere, people go out of their way, making fake accounts, sending you hate mails to, like, I tell my friends and I laugh about this. I'm like, I'm not getting paid to have these kind of problems, right? Like, this is not like Kim Kardashian getting hate. I understand. She's rich and famous, right? I'm neither of those two. But I still get subjected to like so much of drama and so much of hate for the simple reason that I'm fat and I don't hate myself. For the simple reason that I'm fat and I'm not suicidal, right? And that I'm fat and I'm wearing a bikini and whatever else like fat people are not supposed to do. And it's ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous because it's nobody's business, right? It's nobody's business whether Shasini is smart enough to be a nurse, or like whether Natalie is smart enough to be a lawyer, or like you studied law but you're choosing to do something else, or like whatever, whether Tanuja is dating or sorry, married to a guy who's younger, like none of those things, these stereotypes are none of these things that we have to prove to anyone. But we constantly feel like we have to, right? And that's just, you just ignore it because how you, like I said earlier, right, how you look at yourself and your relationship with food, how you balance your work, your lifestyle, your priorities, right? Because food affects everyone differently. I have PCOS. I've always been a fat kid, right? I always also love my food, right? But every time I eat clean, I'm not gonna take a picture of it and put it because like it's not pretty. I take pictures of sushi because like I like sushi, right? And even when I put salads, I would put salads of places that I like to eat salads out from, you know, that kind of thing. But the point is like you people don't get to come into your space, to your home, and tell you, I don't like this and this and this about you, and this is why I won't sleep with you, or this is why you will never get married, or you will never get a degree, or you will never look a certain way. The sense of entitlement strangers have on your body, on your food, and on your lifestyle and your personal life is absolutely appalling. And for that, like, it's really sad. But most importantly, I think we just don't need to give them that much prominence, is the most important thing, I think.
Thank you so much, Grace, and you're so right. And we're gonna do a final round now, and Natalie also has to go. So, with each one, if you could speak on your mind and your relationships as a closing, and also what you're choosing to challenge today, if this conversation has helped you in any way. And Natalia, I know you covered relationships and mental health. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for joining us. What would you like to choose or challenge?
I would say that I choose to challenge the social norms that tell me that there's a certain way that I need to be, or that there's a certain way my life is probably going to turn out. I choose to challenge those, be it my relationship, which is soon to be my marriage, my mental health, the way I look. I choose to challenge those and say, no, my story can be different. I can make my story different, and it's up to me at the end of the day. I'm not going to feel insecure just because you think I should. I'm not going to be scared just because you think my marriage is going to be a failure. I'm not going to be hurt or think any less of myself because you look at me and think, oh my God, look at those marks on your hand, you must be crazy. So for me, I think my biggest takeaway and something that I would choose to challenge are the social norms and the boxes people kind of put you into, by looking at things on the surface, not knowing anything about you, who you are, what you're made of, or where you come from.
Thank you, Natalie. And Tanuja, I know it's in your bio as well, but as you mentioned earlier, you've had an incredible journey, giving birth to a beautiful daughter later on in life, as to what stereotypically expected of us. And I shared the story earlier, yesterday actually, in our pre-chat, how when I first read your bio for another project, and how beautiful you had articulated that I ended up crying for about an hour, because at the end of the day, as much as, I want to imagine that, I am empowered and I'm privileged, and thus I should be able to challenge these stereotypes. These gaps exist in our life, right? And especially with, a chronic illness and with no life partner inside. I've been conditioned maybe, but it's there, and biological needs are also there, right? Love, companionship, relationships, etc. So Tanuja, if you could share a bit with us on that, and also let us know what you're choosing to challenge.
Yeah, so I mean, I heard a lot of people yesterday in the pre-chat talking about, how everyone expects them to have their life together by 25. I don't think I even had my life together at 35. You know what I mean? Like I went through a lot of, everyone sees me as this kind of physically strong girl, mentally strong girl, entrepreneur, whatever. But how I got to this place was because I hit rock bottom. I absolutely hit rock bottom. Addiction, abuse, all of that stuff. I lost my father, my brother in a very short space of time. And I was so broken by that I just couldn't cope. I was numbing myself and, got to a point of suicide and all of that kind of stuff. And it was me finding something that made me truly happy. I had to take myself back to what really made me happy as a child. And I remember I was an active kid. I remember just being always out on my bike, playing cricket. You know what I mean? I was always out and about. And I just thought, okay, I'm going to go back to grassroots. I'm going to just go back to what I know that made me truly happy as a child. And I started working out, and I was just amazed at how much my mental well-being changed just by bringing that into my life as a daily practice. And it was such a profound change that I just decided that was what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I wanted to help people to find their true happiness. And I truly believe that health and wellness is a way to fight depression way more than any pill can do. In this country, whenever you're saying you're depressed or you're down, they just throw pills at you. And I just believe, it's not that's going to help you. It's talking, it's moving, it's getting yourself back into motion and starting to feel again without numbing yourself. And for me, I also really, after losing my brother and my dad, I really lost my faith. I stopped believing in God. I stopped praying, all of those things. And it was really when I rediscovered my faith again, which was probably in like 2013, that I feel that everything in my life turned around. I really started to pray every single day. I would wake up and I would pray and I would visualize what I wanted. I would tell God, an exact description of what I wanted in a man, and this child and everything. And I think the only thing I'd left out in my description was age, because I ended up with a guy who was a lot younger than me, and it wasn't by choice. You know what I mean? It was just purely, I mean, we started out as a fling. It was supposed to be whatever, booty call, whatever you want to call it. But he ended up being the kindest, most caring person I'd ever met. He would come to my house with bags of groceries, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, oh, I looked in your fridge and you had no milk or bread, and I just thought, maybe you need some. And I was just like, oh my God, so get with somebody who does that kind of stuff for you. Our relationship, everybody was, they couldn't understand it. Hell, I didn't even understand it. You know what I mean? It's like, I get it. It's not the norm. It's not the norm for a woman to be with somebody that's so much younger than them. But if I was a man, I don't think anyone would be talking to me about it. Everybody expects a man that's successful or whatever to have a younger woman on their arm. That's a given. But when I did it, it was a big deal, and everybody, we had a massive amount of backlash against us. But we both kind of dug our heels in, and we knew that was what we both wanted. And, with the grace of God, we managed to get through that storm and ended up getting married. And, unfortunately, we started trying for babies when I was, much later in life. I think I started when I was about 40. And I was told it wasn't going to happen for me. You know, I went through IVF several times. It wasn't working. I just couldn't cope with it because I wanted this baby so much. I had always wanted to be a mother. It was just what I always wanted. And I just couldn't believe that it wasn't going to happen for me. Sorry, I didn't really think I was going to cry today. But yeah, I really didn't think it was going to happen for me. And I just started going into panic attacks because the hormones were so strong and I just couldn't control this thing in my life. I just couldn't, no matter how much I wanted to and how much I prayed, it just wasn't happening. And I just eventually, you know, I just gave up and I ended up going to London 2 years ago and I met Hasitha in Cyprus for a friend's wedding. And I was just around all my friends and, you know, good vibes and good times. And we were just, you know, daytime drinking. And I think I was like, okay, Hasi, let's go. Let's go up to the room. And basically that's how Luna was conceived after an afternoon of day drinking and, you know, no IVF, no thinking about it, no nothing. It was just God's will, I guess. So yeah, I'm extremely grateful, extremely grateful that it happened for me. And I guess I'm telling this story because I just want people out there, anyone out there who's feeling like they're in a situation of desperation or they can't see a light at the end of the tunnel. If it could happen for me, I know it can happen for anyone. You know, just stay strong, keep praying, because I truly believe that God hears your prayers. No matter who your God is or who you're praying to, He hears those prayers.
Thank you so much, Tanuja. And if I could ask you to state your name and maybe say what you're choosing to challenge.
So my name is Tanuja Pereira Raymond, and I choose to challenge this idea about mothers and how motherhood becomes, you know, the end of your existence as a woman and as a human being. And I just want mothers to know that they can still continue to be themselves after having their babies. They should continue to love themselves. They should continue to nurture themselves because a happy mother is a happy baby.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Grace, if I can ask you about relationships, love, and mental health. Unfortunately, we're running a little bit over time. So, just in case, worst case scenario, if we have to elaborate, maybe I'll do a one-on-one with you very quickly a little later on and we can get those snippets. But just before we wrap up, what are your thoughts? And I know you have a lot of thoughts in this area and experience, lived experience.
Yeah. So it was always a very happy-go-lucky glass kind of person, drunk and put on medical steroids. And before that, I did have my first panic attack. So, you know, despite like, but the thing is, Kalpani, like I never realized it was a panic attack until like, you know, like sometimes you feel like you could get one, but you know what I mean? But like I never had those moments, right? Because I never thought it could happen to me because I don't remember a time where I have felt that way. And this is something one of my friends observed about me. I'm one of those people who has my fingers in like multiple pies constantly, right? In school, I did so many extracurricular activities. I did different sports, was in so many clubs and societies and like, you know, drama and debating and like 100 other things. So I thrive on stress, right? Stressing my body, stressing my mind, like that's how I function as a person. So, and I'm my best self when I'm busy, right? So this was never a problem for me. But of course, at a certain point, you snap. It becomes too much, right? And even though I was working out regularly, even though I was happy, I wasn't getting enough sleep. And this was my biggest issue. But I've always been a person who had trouble sleeping. So for me, it's just like, okay, that's more time for me to do my stuff, right? But that wasn't the case. And it came to a point where I got physically sick. I had always had issues with my lungs because I'm asthmatic. When I was kid, I always got nebulized constantly, right? But when I started swimming around like 4 or 5 years of age, I never had that issue ever again, except for an occasional asthma attack. But in 2016, I got bronchitis. I was taken to the hospital twice in November and in December. And coming close to Christmas, I was still in the hospital, right? And I was put on medical steroids. And to a point where, like, I'm a person, I don't even take Panadol. So, like, these medical steroids really messed me up, right? My body was turning gray. I lost so much weight and not in an attractive way. I wasn't looking fit or anything, right? I looked like a corpse, right? And it was truly disturbing, and I was hallucinating. And I saw like red snakes on my bed, and I'm like, and I'm a person who has like a sort of an interest in psychology, and I was like, okay, this is nuts. Like, I'm like on crack. I feel like I'm really like on something now. And like there was no accountability from the hospital to how I was treated, right? Nobody even came to check up on me. I don't think I even had a glass of water for like 2 3 days. And I just locked myself in the washroom, and like I just put the shower on and I started meditating. And trust me when I tell you this, I am not a religious person, right? At all, right? I'm a born Buddhist, but I'm not a fan of institutionalized religion, right? So I I am spiritual though, right? I like reading about certain things. And the fun fact about being a Buddhist is like, it leaves you room to be spiritual without like going to the temple and things like that, right? And I just kept meditating and just like breathing in and out and just kind of try to calm myself down under the shower. And in retrospect, I don't know if it sounds dramatic or not, but that's exactly what I did. And it saved me because I honestly don't know, because I was feeling so overwhelmed. I thought I might even like climb out of that balcony or something. And then when I left the hospital, I was physically fine, but mentally I was a mess, right? And my parents, took me to a few psychologists, a few psychiatrists, but I was adamant on not taking any pills to like, because I got to that point because of medical steroids, right? Not because of anything else. And that made me even less trusting of like medicine, right? And I know medicine helps a lot of other people, but it really wasn't the answer for me, because I wanted to fix things internally, right? Not to plaster it. And then I spoke to a psychologist at Colorboil Hospital, and then he helped me understand. He asked me basic things, right? He's like, "What do you usually eat, right? Do you work out? Like, are you usually happy? Like, he asked me very, very basic questions, and he just came to the conclusion that he's like, "You're just not getting enough rest, right? Take a few months off, stop local uni, stop your law degree, just take your time off." And I met this other amazing psychiatrist. She told me, your brain is like a computer, right? You take in information, but there's not enough output for you, right? And that was true, because I was feeling so trapped. I don't know for what reason, because I had all the freedom to do anything I wanted, but I just felt so trapped. And then I eventually dropped out of local uni. I asked my parents, should I drop out? And my parents have always been people like, do whatever you want, just do it right. Whatever the career you pick, just, whatever. And I'm like, no, just tell me, should I drop out or not? And my mom's like, it's your decision. Like, and my dad's like, do whatever you want. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take some time. And then I actually decided I'm going to drop out because I wanted to study English in local uni, but I didn't get selected even though I had an A. And being one of the only people in Sri Lanka to have an A for English Lit, I still didn't get the chance to study English Lit for my degree because we have a weird system. And I had to do TESOL and I hated it, right? I had a few modules that I liked, but everything else I hated. And I was like, okay, I don't need this. But I always want to do law. So I focus only on doing law, but even that I took some time off. And let me tell you, Kapani, I was in Sushmita's batch, right? But because I took that time off, a lot of my colleagues graduated and everything like before me because I didn't do that exam, right? And that really, really, really hit me hard, right? Because, you know, like we were talking yesterday, by 25, you're supposed to have your life all figured out. And I was a very ambitious person who was forced to take time off, right? And that drove me nuts, right? Like, I hated the fact that I got sick. Not that I deliberately caused it upon myself, of course not, right? But I just hated it. And then it took me a while to realize that it's okay, right? That I can be ambitious and be successful and like be everything else that I've always wanted to be, regardless of whether I'm graduating at 24 or not. And that self-realization took me a while. And that's why I always say, like, how you view yourself is the most important, because personally for me, if I am not on my team, it doesn't matter what everybody else says. Because people, and this was ironically the same year I got shortlisted for the Gratian, right? So I'm the youngest ever to get shortlisted, and that's a big achievement. And I was really happy for myself. So people kept saying, "Oh my God, you're so talented," and like, you know, they like complimented me so much. But that was the same year I got sick and I had to stay back from uni. So I felt like a massive fraud. Like I'm not actually smart, or like I'm not actually talented, and that people only saw this side of me, and that I was pretending to be somebody. So it took me a while to just be like, no, I can be a smart person and a talented person who has bad days, right? My experience or my health doesn't define who I am entirely, or my capabilities as a person, right? But you know, it's like that burnout effect, right? Like you peak and then suddenly you're like, okay, I'm done. So it was really, really hard for me to motivate myself to get back on and, like, you know, start my uni stuff again. And I did really well in my last few exams. I got a lot of merits. So, you know, I guess I'm not that stupid. But, you know, it was really hard for me. And in terms of like mental health, that was the biggest struggle. It wasn't even for me, it wasn't even experiencing that trauma. Or also, like, you know, I was told to kill myself while I was actually going through this whole steroid induced trance of mine. That was fun. And my parents were so worried for me because I told them for the first time of one of the things people tell me, because if I was to try something, I wanted them to stop me, right? And usually I don't share these things with my parents because I don't want them to worry too much. But this time I had to tell them because I didn't want me to do something that I would regret later on. And it's important to have a good support system. And I had friends who constantly checked up on me. I had followers and people on my social media, people I don't usually talk to, but people I have known as, you know, associated one-off, who actually reached out. And so that's pretty much how I sorted that out. And in terms of personal relationships, company, I'm pretty much what you see is what you get, right? Like in terms of dating, in terms of a relationship, like especially a relationship. And I think I told you, like, I, except for last year, briefly, I haven't met anybody I wanted to be in a relationship with. Because, like, there's not a lot of people who can understand the full facets of you. And, like, when you were telling me earlier today that you feel like you're shrinking to accommodate somebody else, and that's how I feel with a lot of the people I meet here, right? And that's when you know you can't be with someone like that. You know, a good relationship is supposed to be nurturing, it's supposed to be supportive. So you're not supposed to, you know, be dumber so that the guy feels smarter. You're not supposed to earn lesser because the guy feels like he's threatened, right? And unfortunately, a lot of people feel that way because we live in a patriarchy, right? It's not the guy's fault or the girl's fault. It's just the way we have been brought up. And my friends always say, like, the way I think, I won't find a guy in this country, right? And maybe that's true, you know, maybe that's true because, like, I don't think it's very easy to date here, right? Because a guy can sleep with like 15 people and he's a champion, but a girl has two boyfriends and she's a slut, right? Like, why do we even care? Like, why is it anybody's business as to how you date or who you date or whether you're a virgin? Like, you know, it doesn't matter. If, and you know, there's a little bit of virgin shaming too. Like, we have suddenly Americanized ourselves, right? And I have heard people virgin shaming, and that's not correct either, because just like fat shaming and thin shaming, slut shaming or virgin shaming, both are bad things, right? These are personal choices. And um yeah, dating is a whole different ball game, I think. Like, and in terms of being, I just want to say, like, when you're a fat person, there are certain people expect you to be with, right? So if you're a fit person, you date only fit looking people, right? And if you're a fat person, apparently you're supposed to date only fat people, right? Like, that, there is an understanding. I have gotten bugged about bigger size guys just because we are both fat. And like people I've never even spoken to just bug me because this other guy who's really big made is at the same party as us. And I'm like, that's so dumb. Right. And I feel bad for the guy, right? Because my personally speaking, my self-esteem isn't so bad that I think the only man who will ever date me is a fat man because we're both fat and that's what we have in common. Right. But there are people who believe that. Right.
I'm so
And
sorry to break in, Grace, because we're way over time and Women Empowered needs to stop the streaming. So
oh,
because of that, yeah, I'm just so sorry. Maybe I will also get you on IG, and we can carry on this conversation. But thank you so much for your truth. And I was just, because I need to ask Timo and Shasini as well, very quickly on what they're choosing to challenge and relationships in their mind. Whether you could tell me what you're choosing to challenge.
yeah. So hi, my name is Grace Vikram Singer, and I choose to challenge every single one of us to look within ourselves, to break out from our own boxes of stereotypes.
Thank you so much, Grace. And thank you, Tanuja, for joining us. I know you have an early start as well. So take care and bye. And
Thanks for letting me be a part of it.
thank you so much. Sushmita had to leave, so I'll bring her back personally, I guess, and then give it to Women Empower Global. And Natalie had to go as well. And Shasini and Timo, if I could ask the both of you about, love and about your mind and how all of these things intersect and what you're choosing to challenge. And I'm sorry if I have to keep it very brief. We are way over time, unfortunately, but that's how the truth works, right? We can't boil it down as well. So yeah.
So I'll start with if you want me to with love, mind, and then what I'm going to challenge, right?
Yeah.
So with love, I think I was just always, to be very brutally honest, my parents didn't have the greatest marriage. And my mom had to fight a lot to get to where she is and to find happiness again. And a lot of marriages that I saw weren't very good marriages. So I was very, 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 very conscious about that. And that was another thing I kept telling myself when I was young. All these teachers are telling me to get married, that I'll be married and happy and have a good life, but that's not what I was seeing, so I would say that I was very, very careful in the person that I was going to pick. And actually, like Tanuja was saying, it's crazy. It comes out of nowhere. Like I had never, ever, ever had a boyfriend. And then I met Shaman just before I was going to go to America. So we started off as, there was just so much between us, and he was also, he would listen to me. He wanted to get to know me. He cared about my dreams and my ambitions. And he just encouraged me, and even when I left, even though we didn't really think we'd make it, he just never left my side. I'm not saying it was a perfect love story. I mean, we fought so much. Long distance is awful. We were broken up so much, but we just kept gravitating towards each other because he really, truly believed in me more than I did myself, and he was there. He encouraged me. I'm so lucky, that he was patient enough to wait and be faithful and, really make me reach my goals and my potential. And he waited for me to be done with everything that I wanted to do in my life before he even asked me to marry him at like 30, after being together for maybe 10 years or more, so I would say that it's really important that the person that you're going to be with believes in you 100%, trusts you, and never, ever, ever tells you that you're not going to be able to do what you want to do. Never inhibits you, just lifts you up and tells you how great you are and tells you, why are you being such a baby right now? You can do this. Like, go take a nap, get up, study, get to work. You can do this. You're here, I think it's not very romantic about love, I would say. It seems more practical and safe, but truly, I think it's really, that's the bottom line. The person has to believe in you and trust you. And then with mind, I think a lot for me, it would be a little different because of the field that I am in. After I started working in the hospital, like I said before, and realized that how fragile life is and about our mortality and our presence on this planet. It was like an existential crisis, like why are we here kind of thing. That really, really, really helped me think about things differently. And it forced me to think about things differently because I would always think about death. Like I would always, and I still do, when I'm in my deathbed, like, is this something that I'm going to wish that I did, because I do. I think as a nurse, I did get, and when I worked in the hospital, I did get the opportunity to sit and speak with a lot of these people. And I think I would, maybe if I did become a doctor, I wouldn't have really had that opportunity or time to sit with someone truly and ask them what they feel about the end of their life and dying and their regrets. So I am thankful that I ended up where I did, because that really, really, really helped me put a lot of things into perspective. What was important to me, who was important to me, who was it into my life, how much I feel emotion. I tend to just tell people how I feel about them and how much I love them. Or I don't hold back in that aspect also because of that, because we're not here for a long time. We're not, and you don't know what life's going to throw at you. And all these things that you're worried about, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. So that is something that really most definitely helped my mindset. I know it doesn't sound so great, think about death, but truly.
No, absolutely, it does. Even for me, as I said, lupus is a chronic illness, and it has absolutely changed as to how I think and how I look at life. So thank you so much. Shastini, if I can ask you to state your name and to let me know and to let us know what you're choosing to challenge.
My name is Shastini Mustashi, and I am challenging every single person out there to do the thing that they thought that they'll never be able to do, that they were too scared to do, that they didn't have the confidence to do. Because like I said, you know, it's a very short time. If there's anything you want to do, you do it. It doesn't matter what anyone or anything that happens around it. If it's truly your passion, do it. You know, I know it's easier said than done, but really I'm asking you to push yourself, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have ended up here.
Thank you so much, Shasini. Timo, you've spoken about mental health and how, you know, even your love life, how you approach it. But if you want to add some final thoughts to it and let us know what you're choosing to challenge.
Okay. So I would like to say, look, everyone has spoken about like how to be in like an amazing relationship. I would like to just say like a little bit. You may choose like the most indirect copy of yourself to be a partner or a husband or a wife or whatever. And when you do it, like when other people say like which is right or wrong, like don't think about it. Like, you know, there will be like hundreds of opinions, you know, especially I would like to say like in initial stage of my self-esteem met, like there were a lot of comments and like against things were said. And one was that like it was made by one of the famous person, Danu actually made that comment saying like, what's your issue? Like you got a daddy to do everything else. And it just broke me. Like at that time, like I was like, okay, what was the mentality behind it? Like what was he thinking? Just because he only saw the filter, which is because you know what, you know, I'm just gonna say it all, like, you know, all this makeup and everything, there is a real person inside, you know. When you talk, like this is one like relationship based, and then there are people going to say like you're too dark, you're too thin. Like I think we discussed about it yesterday, like saying like talentless to girly, not beautiful, useless, just a face, nothing else. And like there will be like hundreds of opinions which will come to you, but don't let it shape up your goal, what you want to reach. Because this is what I've done. Like I've never got distracted because of it. It's not that I'm trying to say that I have been extremely successful. I'm still going through that. I will catch whatever I want if I work hard, and I have always been. What I've never done in myself is never given up. Okay, always like held myself up. Like there is something inside, like saying me, okay, like especially like I would like to highlight this. Whatever the things what I go in my life, like it's like the breaking point. If even like I couldn't get up in the morning, there were times like I have thought that. And the only thing was like, you know, a person who had one of the parent was a cancer patient, obviously have to go through many of the chemotherapy. If that parent, my mother, can get up and like steam up and say, okay, I am strong, and not showing that she's not strong, and go on in life to carry on for the kids, what is a complaint that I personally have to make? What less I have got in this world? Like I have everything in that case. I have my hands, I have my legs, I have everything going for me. Like even if I don't have, I will make it, you know. And then whenever you fall, don't worry, you get up. Okay, get up, learn from where you failed from, and try again. Keep on trying again, do it again, do it even more harder. Don't even bother. Like, you know, sometimes it's quite heartbreaking to do it from the scratch, but sometimes it's quite, a foundation can be a bit more stronger than before. You know, you will achieve the success, and do not give up. And I would like to highlight a small thing, you know. I'm Timran Karwali. I would like to challenge, like there's a Tamil word, Tirukural wording saying like, Teenal Suttapun Ullarum Aradi Navinal Suttavadu. That clearly means you can burn a person and that wound will heal very fast. But the words what you say to a person will never heal. Okay. I would like everyone to challenge. I would like to this challenge is going to be like, think before you talk. Whatever you do, like, what you say either is going to make a person or break a person. That's all. Like, I think I work with.
Thank
Sorry.
you so much, Timo, and thank you for your truth, and thank you so much. Thank you, Shastini. Grace, if I can ask you to state your full name and what you're choosing to challenge or what you're asking us to challenge.
I did that, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just like all over the place. So then maybe I'll say what I'm choosing to challenge. So I'm Kalpini Gunaratana, and I'm choosing to challenge the connection between my body, my mind, and my soul, and see where things go. And for everyone who's joining us, whether it's live or recorded, I know we went over time, but thank you for listening in. Thank you for sharing with us, and let us know what you choose to challenge. And a big thank you to Women Empower Global for the platform and also for the patience and for the trust. Just a quick reminder that Women Empower Global Summit on the 8th of March, it's free. So do check out their socials and sign up if you're interested. And yeah, we'll catch you in the comments. We'll carry on this conversation, hopefully within our own circles. Thank you to everyone, and have a good night.